Well, can we kick off a Friday by thanking you for your generosity yesterday? Look at this record-setting number from yesterday's 11th annual Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. Every dollar staying in Kansas City, helping out the kids at the KU Medical Center and working through the University of Kansas health system. $107,060. Let's go. Woo! How about that? Man, you guys knocked it out of the park. That represents our largest single day amount received from listener donations here at Cumulus, Kansas City. Absolutely unbelievable. Your generosity was on display yesterday. You were helping 50,000 kids in Kansas City who used these services just last year alone. And you made a world of difference in the lives of not just the kids, but the families. From throwing birthday parties to getting stuffies for kids in the hospital to life-saving medical equipment and research, you made a huge difference yesterday. And eventually, I'll go through the list. I don't have our top donor list just yet. I'll get that today from the Children's Miracle Network staff. But the top 10 donors from yesterday will get that personally inscribed copy of Bill O'Reilly's Confronting Evil. So I'll reach out to everybody who was on that list. I know we had many donors, over $1,000 a pop. So I'm looking forward to going through that list today and expect to hear from me in the next, give me a few days on it, but we'll get you all taken care of. Just unbelievable. And I cannot thank you enough for your generosity yesterday. It's one of my favorite shows of the year, and that's because I get to brag about you and this audience, and we get to showcase what exactly this audience is all about and the generosity that this audience has, especially this time of year. So well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you for just an amazing, amazing day yesterday. So I was thinking about this record-setting day that we had yesterday, and I was thinking about it in the wake of, obviously, what has been the big conversation around the country over the last few weeks. And that is what? Affordability, affordability, affordability. Speaking of Bill O'Reilly, who's going to give you those signed copies to our top 10 donors, O'Reilly told a story the other day on the air about how President Trump yelled at him on the phone because O'Reilly has been honest about how the affordability issue may be the thing that hurts Trump and the GOP coming up in these midterms. Now, I've said the same thing. The difference is Trump doesn't call me up and yell at me because obviously this platform, as much as it's a massive platform in Kansas City, is not Bill O'Reilly's platform. And I'm okay with that. That's why Bill comes here on KCMO once in a while and shares his thoughts exclusively with you and with us in Kansas City because he knows what we've got on KCMO Talk Radio. That being said, Bill understands, as I think many people who are clear-eyed, that if the economic situation by and large does not improve, even though many of us believe President Trump is on the right path with his economic policy, if things do not dramatically improve, voters have short-term memories, and they'll just say, well, time to give the other party a chance. Well, things aren't dramatically better, so we'll just go back to the other guys. Even though, let's be honest, the other guys are the ones that gave us 9% inflation. Some of that was going to happen anyway in the wake of COVID because COVID was so stupid with how we went about our policy and the incredible spending and the stimmies and the other nonsense we were doing, the PPP loans and things like that. So inflation was going to happen. But then, of course, the last guy put it on steroids.
Come on, man.
Because he passed things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which just skyrocketed inflation and took things from what would have been sticky inflation to obviously 40-year highs on inflation in late 21, 22, and 23. But now you look at it, and it's amazing how the media suddenly cares about what's affordable and what's not. And this piece yesterday from CBS News stood out to me. Headline, Trump says U.S. prices are coming down tremendously. Here's what the data actually shows. They write here, inflation dipped to a low this year of 2.3% in April, but it has steadily ticked up since then and now stands at the same rate as in January when President Trump was inaugurated. Economists attribute the rise partly to Trump administration's new tariffs on imports, with Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell pointing to those levies as a key factor behind the recent uptick. So they're really going through and really nitpicking on some of the policy of this administration. And I don't mind that, but the way that they are also rewriting history. I look through this piece and the name Joe Biden only comes up once, and it's in a quote from Donald Trump. They write here, from a longer-term perspective, inflation has indeed fallen sharply since hitting a 40-year high of about 9% in June of 2022 in the aftermath of the pandemic. As if we got to 9% inflation of June of 22 simply because of the pandemic. That ain't true. First off, it's because of the policies implemented during the pandemic. Now, yes, some of those were Trump during his first, few months or the few months of the pandemic when, yes, there was too much stimulus money injected into the economy. But then, of course, Pops came in January of 21, and Pops just lit the whole thing on fire, man. You passed the Inflation Reduction Act in April of 2021, and that just, if you wanted to ignite inflation to 40-year highs, you would have done exactly what that guy did when he got in. So the way that CBS News is framing this is just wildly disingenuous. Now, it's not going to shock anybody, but it is. And this is the uphill battle that this administration is fighting. I'm not saying every economic lever that this administration has pulled has been perfect. I still wonder whether or not these tariffs are going to work out the way they claim they're going to work out. But I'm willing to give them a little bit of time or a little bit more time. But they've got this uphill battle because you do have, by and large, a media establishment that is dead set on suddenly caring about the affordability crisis and the issues that, frankly, millions of Americans have been feeling for years. They just care about it now because it's politically convenient for their preferred political party. So Karoline Leavitt's the White House press secretary, and she came out yesterday and spent about 5 minutes in her press conference talking about this. And she's actually selling it in a smarter, more effective way than her boss, the president, has over the last few weeks.
On the economic front, after inheriting the worst inflation crisis in over 4 decades, President Trump's pro-growth policies are making tremendous progress to make America affordable again. Under the painful Biden years, inflation reached a record high 9% and devoured Americans' purchasing power. In President Trump's term thus far, inflation has dropped to an average of just 2.7%, marking critical progress.
All right, that's great. Great. Give me the numbers. That's fantastic. That's the pitch I want to hear right there. Here's where we were, here's where we are, and here's why we believe our policies are going to continue to make things better for everyday Americans. Not this hey, buy fewer dolls or, what was it? The interview with Politico last week when the president was asked, what would you grade the economy? And he's like, A plus, 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 plus. I think I got enough pluses in there. It's like, I know you maybe don't want to give yourself a grade, but just say, hey, we walked into an economy that was a D and we're making it better every day. That's it. But you can't tell everybody everything's great when there still is, yes, some pain out there. So Karoline Leavitt did a very good job explaining this yesterday. And frankly, it's this kind of stuff that the boss man needs to take from her.
The Trump administration is working hard every single day to bring down the cost of living through bigger paychecks and lower prices. Real wages are finally on the rise again and on pace to increase to roughly $1,200 for the average American worker this year. To put that into perspective, real wages declined by almost $3,000 under the Biden administration. That means Americans right now are on track already to make up 1/3 of the $3,000 in lost wages under Joe Biden. There's much work to do, but this has already been significant progress.
That's it. There's much work to do, says Karoline Leavitt. but this has been significant progress. When you talk about real wages, that is, how are the wages stacking up versus the cost of living? And it's going to take time. As someone notes right now on the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, let's also not forget 2% inflation right now on top of 9% still means it's going to take a while for prices to at least stabilize to where people feel like they've come down. Exactly right. It's simple math. The wages did not keep up the last few years, so the pinch is still real, even if inflation is down to that 2% number, because you're talking about 2% on top of what has been obviously a half decade of really sticky inflation. That's exactly right. But also, the big guy's got to learn from what Caroline Levitt was saying yesterday. Little bit of empathy can go a long way. But we also know this. We had a record day yesterday for Children's Miracle Network. So thank you for that. I do believe people are starting to feel better about things overall, regardless of what the mainstream media coverage is going to be. And I think you saw some of that on display here in Kansas City with your generosity on our Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. Now, in Missouri, I watched this on the local news last night, and this was driving me nuts. You want to talk about disingenuous on what is actually great policy. This was it yesterday. I will share it with you coming up next, 6:15. Welcome in. Happy Red Friday on KCMO.
from Lenexa to Lee Summit. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, I love this from the state of Missouri and from the USDA, who was joined by RFK, of course, Health and Human Services Secretary, to announce this week the approval of 6 new state SNAP food choice waivers under the Make America Healthy Again, MAHA initiative. The waivers were submitted by Missouri, Hawaii, North Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. And what this will do will amend the statutory definition of food for purchase under the SNAP food stamp program beginning next year. So in Missouri, what you're going to have now is that if you get food stamps, you will not be able to buy certain things like candy, prepared desserts, soft drinks, and beverages with 50% or less natural fruit or vegetable juice, beverage mixes, and drink concentrates. I love this because what you've had going on for far too long is people overly reliant on food stamps. I'm all about a safety net. I understand that people do need help and need a handout at times. I'm not an anti-food stamp guy. But what I am against is this idea that food stamps becomes a lifestyle for people. It keeps them in poverty. They buy garbage junk food. That then makes them unhealthy. And then what happens on the back end? Oftentimes it's costing the American taxpayer through Medicaid. And it's just unhealthy, right? Just for the people on it. I know we want to be generous. We want to help people in need. That's who we are as a country. But are you really helping people? Like, are you genuinely helping people? If you're making food stamps a lifestyle, they're buying junk food with it, and then they're literally slowly killing themselves by using those food stamps to ingest garbage. And also they're doing it to their kids. Is that really something we want to promote in this country? The answer should be overwhelmingly no. This is not a partisan issue. I know that, like, some people are going to sit there and say, well, it's Trump, it's MAHA, it's RFK, it's bad. Well, first off, Hawaii's doing this. That was one of the states. Hawaii's, like, underratedly one of the bluest states in the country. I know it was overwhelmingly red states that asked for this, but once again, the states that submitted these waivers, Missouri, North Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, okay, red states, and Hawaii, which is a very healthy state, I will add. It's a blue state, but a very healthy state. They get it. So what's the local approach yesterday? This was really embarrassing from harvesters. I saw this on Channel 9 last night and listened to the coverage of how they went about talking about this new rule that's going to be in place starting in 2026 in Missouri that will no longer allow you to buy basically junk food or junk drinks with your food stamps.
Elizabeth Keever, Chief Resource Officer at Harvesters, says low-income families will feel the changes.
You're going to see families who are going to have to choose between whether or not they can buy this granola bar that might be considered candy depending on what order those ingredients are listed on in the back.
Significant.
Okay. Oh, and? I mean, I'm sorry if you're getting a handout from the government and you have to do a little research as to what you are allowed to buy based on what is considered healthy and what is not. Okay. Sorry.
An amazing grasp of the obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the point.
That's the point. That's the point. I mean, harvesters coming out against the idea that food stamps that are given to Missourians should not be used on junk food and junk drinks is something I didn't have on my bingo card over the last few weeks. And I don't know why harvesters would be against this. Is it political? I don't understand why harvesters will be like, oh boy, now these people have to figure out what granola bars they can buy. Okay, I'm sorry, we're trying to have some standards to make sure that government money used in the food stamp business is not then getting people sicker by allowing them to buy junk. I don't know. I would think that harvesters would be in support of this.
Look for your new bingo card in the mail where it's amended. They'll cover the murder hornet over with this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's exactly right. Let's continue. Channel 9.
Governor Mike Kehoe praised the move, calling it a step towards improving nutrition for families. But Keever claims it will do the exact opposite.
Just by restricting certain items, it just makes it more burdensome for stores.
And as many families prepare for those SNAP changes by next October, local nonprofits are already seeing the need to grow.
Why? Why? Because you got to get processed desserts in there? Local nonprofits are already seeing the need to grow because Missouri is saying and has passed a law that was approved by the USDA saying that you cannot buy sweetened foods and drinks with your SNAP money. No more candy and prepared desserts and soft drinks. So why would that require, I'm just thinking through this logically, why would that suddenly require organizations like Harvesters to have to grow? So you can inject Dr. Pepper into the veins of poor people on food stamps and make them more sick? I'm sorry, John. I know you got a liter of Dr. Pepper in there. It's just the first thing that came to mind.
Yes, but I purchased it. I didn't go down and ask for it for free.
That's true. That's true. I don't understand why harvesters would get in the way of this and why they would somehow try to frame this thing as oh, boy, this is so bad for poor people. And, boy, we're going to need more resources now more than ever. If Harvesters is in the business of trying to basically fill in the gaps of giving candy and prepared desserts and soft drinks to poor people on food stamps, I wouldn't give them a dime. And I like Harvesters. I think they've done a good job. I've given them money before. But if this is going to be their thing that they try to take the high ground on, I'm out, man. I am totally out on that. Stay out of it, Harvesters. This has nothing to do with you. You do a great job. You have a really good organization. But whether or not people on food stamps can buy prepared desserts, it's like my girls always see these cookies in the local grocery stores that's, like Mahomes and Kelsey and the numbers and Chiefs things. And it's all junk, and we probably get it once a year. But you know what? If you can't buy those things with food stamps, that ain't a bad thing. There's no downside to that. And Harvesters they've got to stay out of this one. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio on a Friday morning, it does not look like healthcare is going anywhere right now in D.C. besides the fact that Roger Marshall is trying to make a push. We'll explain next.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
Republicans are, I think, pretty screwed on this topic. And deep down, I believe they know it, and they don't know what to do about it. And it's the issue of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, subsidies that, of course, are set to expire coming up here at the end of the year. And Democrats are putting the screws to them. This is why the government was shut down for so many weeks. And now we're sitting here in mid-December. It's a Friday morning. And the Senate has no intention of doing anything about this. So what you had happen yesterday is the Senate rejected legislation to extend Affordable Care Act tax credits, which essentially will guarantee that millions of Americans will see a pretty steep rise in costs at the beginning of the year. Now, Republicans are in the right in the sense that these subsidies were put in place during COVID. It was supposed to be basically a way to help people out during COVID. COVID's been over for 5+ years, right? But they kept the gravy train going on these tax credits. Because, well, it kept people's costs down because the Affordable Care Act is not actually affordable. Talk
about a bombshell.
I know. Great name. Just like Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. Great name, but straight out of 1984. All right? George Orwell is somewhere blushing on the name of these bills. The Inflation Reduction Act, which skyrocketed inflation. The Affordable Care Act, which has done nothing but made health care less affordable. But, you know, this is obviously something that they've had political success with. So now Republicans decide this year, hey, these tax credits for Obamacare have got to end. I mean, you know, it's supposed to be a handout during COVID, help people out. And now we're sitting here 5 years later, and the program is crumbling. But at the same time, you know and I know, if people see a major spike in their premiums, which they're going to see next year, they will blame the people in charge. They'll look at the Republicans and they'll say, this is on you guys. Well, no, the system's completely broken. It needs to be torn apart. It needs to start over. But in 2025, in a TikTok culture where people are swiping and not paying attention and largely brain dead, they're just going to be like, well, the guys in charge are to blame for this. My costs went up. Put the other guys in charge. They won't take a step back and look at this and say, how did we get here? And we got here because the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable. If it's only affordable when the government subsidizes it to the tune of $150 billion, then memo, it's really not affordable. It's not. But the Republicans have not had an answer for any of this. And Democrats know that. So the Democrats are playing the political game. And right now, they're in the lead. They're ahead. Because for 15 years, the GOP has sat on its hands and done nothing about this. And now, with 3 weeks to go until the end of the year, they're scrambling and they're looking for answers. Now, Roger Marshall, our U.S. Senator here in Kansas, he was on the Senate floor yesterday, and he's got a plan. He's, of course, a doctor by trade. He knows the industry very well. He's got a plan. The problem is the votes are not there to get his plan passed in the U.S. Senate. You need 60 votes, obviously, to pass something. You have about 54 Republicans, and you've got 45, 46 Democrats. So you would need some people to cross the aisle. The Democrats know they've got the Republicans up against the wall here. So politically, they feel like there's no reason to go ahead and do anything the Republicans want to do on this issue, even if, as Roger Marshall laid out, he's got a pretty good plan that has some pretty darn good ideas in it.
Let me just sum up briefly what our plan does, and then I'll maybe go a little bit deeper. Number one is we address the fraud. Number two, we extend the Obamacare, the Biden era extended subsidies for another year. We fund CSRs. We address fraud, if I didn't say that yet. And then starting in 2027, we would start taking some of that money that we were using on these extended subsidies. That's about $35 billion a year. We would start putting that into your debit card, into your healthcare debit card. Thousands of dollars per family. You know, for some it might be $7,000, for some it might be $5,000, but we want you to start making choices. And then lastly, what our bill does, and this is really why I'm so confused why Democrats would walk away from this. If there was one good thing about Obamacare, it was addressing pre-existing conditions, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But our bill funds invisible, high-risk reinsurance pools. So it's like belts and suspenders for people that develop high-risk conditions.
Roger Marshall rhetorically asks there, Kansas U.S. Senator, why Democrats would walk away from his plan. And his plan's a pretty good one. Basically, you know, like we have an HSA, so we have this debit card that has money on it through our health savings account, and we can use it for different health things. Kids go to the doctor or whatever, or, you know, I chip a tooth. I could use it at the dentist if I wanted to. I didn't use it the other day when I got my teeth straightened out there because it was only like $52. I couldn't believe it. I was like, and Kate has the HSA card anyway, so I didn't have it on me. But I was like, oh, $52, geez, not bad. But Roger Marshall's idea is a good one, which is give the power to the people. Get the cost down by giving people and the free market the opportunity to operate instead of just giving the money directly to the insurance companies. But he asks the question rhetorically there, why the Dems would walk away from his plan. Because they've got you guys over a barrel here right now. That's why they see no reason to compromise with you guys. Because for so long, you haven't had a plan. And I don't mean this to Roger Marshall. I mean it to the party at large. You haven't had a plan. You got nothing to latch onto. And Dems are like, why are we going to give you a political win right now? They don't need to do it. On the text line, Pete, Republicans have come up with nothing. It's been 15 years. I know. And yes, they were going to vote down Obamacare. And then the whole John McCain thing happened a few years ago. Yeah, we all remember that. But to the point of that texter, yeah, they really haven't come up with anything. And now with 3 weeks to go before the end of the year, and you know and I know, nothing of note and substance actually happens this time of year. I mean, it barely happens any time of year. Never mind this time of year. They're like, why are we going to give you guys a win on this whole thing? Why bother? Why do it? On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, the GOP has a plan, so why do you say they are sitting on their hands? They have a plan at the 11th hour when they need Democrat support, and the Dems have absolutely no reason to give them a win. It's not just about having a plan. It's about when you put your plan together. And think about this. They wanted to phase out the subsidies. This was the plan all along. And they had to eventually realize that the Democrats were going to basically use this against them. And until the Democrats did use this against them and did force a government shutdown, which, yes, was all on the Ds, there was no plan. Until this became a huge topic of conversation the last couple of months, Republicans had no plan. I don't know if they were just hoping that the subsidies were going to go away and nobody was going to notice, but that's where these guys aren't thinking 2 steps ahead. You knew your political opponents were going to use this against you. You knew then the media was going to beat you over the head with it, and you guys did nothing. And you had nothing in the pipeline to combat it. Nothing whatsoever. And I'm not saying that policy-wise they're wrong. They're not wrong. They're right to say that taxpayers should not be footing the bill for a failed Obamacare system. But then you've got to think about, okay, how do I actually go about changing this? And what do I do? You know what's interesting, too, yesterday? I saw this. Speaking of our local senators, you had Roger Marshall, who's a doctor by trade, laying out his plan yesterday. The Senate voted to not move forward with the Democratic bill. They want to extend the Obamacare subsidies. So that didn't pass, and then the Republican plan didn't pass. But Josh Hawley in Missouri voted with the Democrats yesterday. So the Senate voted 51-48 to not move ahead with the Democratic bill to extend Obamacare subsidies. Josh Hawley voted with the Democrats. He is running for president. Let's be very clear. Josh Hawley is going to be in Iowa probably this time next year, stumping and running for president. And he's going to do it on a Bernie Sanders conservative Christian platform that I don't know actually exists. But he thinks that lane does. Populism mixed with, breaking up the big tech companies and kind of a Bernie Sanders strain, but then also having a Christian conservative element to his pitch. That's the lane that Josh Hawley's going to run in. He voted yesterday with Democrats to extend Obamacare subsidies. Fascinating. And it's really about, I think, what he's setting up for in 2028. Our 6 at 6, top 6 stories in the 6 o'clock hour. We'll get to next here on KCMO Talk Radio.
from Leawood to Liberty. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
I won't make it a 6 at 6, but I do want to thank you for helping us raise $107,060 yesterday as part of our Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. Thank you so much to every single one of you, whether you donated $5, $50, $500, or $5,000, which we got one of those during Keatsman's show yesterday. So you're making a huge difference in the lives of kids and their families right here in Kansas City, KU Medical Center, and the University of Kansas Health System. Thank you for your generosity.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
Let's start in Olathe, where Johnson County District Attorney Steve Howe has upgraded charges in connection with the attack at the Whole Foods in Olathe last week to now attempted first-degree murder. 50-year-old Christopher Adam Brewer was previously charged with felony aggravated battery with great bodily harm. That has now been upgraded to first-degree murder charges, attempted first-degree murder charges. This came after Brewer allegedly attacked 85-year-old Patricia Cohort outside of the Whole Foods at 119th and Black Bob. She was loading groceries into her trunk in the Olathe Point Shopping Center just after noon when she was attacked. Another shopper got in between the suspect and the victim until police arrived. She was found in the parking lot with a large cut on her skull and nose. She has had surgery for facial fractures and was placed in intensive care. These two did not know each other, so the motivation is still not clear. But Steve Howe's not messing around. Brewer was in court yesterday, and that is when those charges were upgraded to attempted first-degree murder. Good job by Steve Howe in Johnson County. Hopefully he can get a big win and get some justice.
Number 2.
Let's go to the other side of state line. Police are still searching for a person of interest in the murder investigation of a Missouri State University freshman. This ties to the murder of 18-year-old Elijah Murray. She was visiting home from college over Thanksgiving break. She went out with friends on Thanksgiving night and never returned home. Police confirmed that Murray was shot and killed. They found her remains in South Kansas City on November 29th. Eric Phillips II has been identified as a person of interest by the Independence Police Department. This guy was hired in November of 2023 as an assistant wrestling coach at Raytown South High School. He resigned from the position earlier this year on April 17th. For nearly 2 weeks, police have been trying to locate Eric Phillips for questioning. They don't know where he is. So they're asking the public for some help right now. If you have information that would help the investigation or know the whereabouts of Eric Phillips II, please contact the Independence Police Department, 816-325-7347. Or, of course, if you want to remain anonymous, the KC Crime Stoppers tips hotline, 816-474-TIPS.
Number 3.
Let's go to the Royals. They have signed a free agent right-handed outfielder, Lane Thomas. He comes over from the division rival Guardians. 1-year deal, $5.25 million, $1 million in incentives. So 29-year-old comes in off an unhealthy and, frankly, unproductive 2025 season. So they're going for the bargain play here, Mark. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I called him Lame Thomas last year, so I hope he can prove me wrong this year.
You called him Lame Thomas.
Yeah.
Well, now you got to root for Lame Thomas.
Yeah.
Eesh. Okay. Well, he had a good year a couple of years ago. In 23, he hit nearly 30 home runs. So he had a good year a couple of years ago. Not a good year last year, and the Royals are hoping that they can basically turn this guy around, right?
Bounce back time, baby.
That's you know what? A pretty cheap deal, too. I mean, $5 million nowadays in Major League Baseball, that's nothing. But, yeah, last year was not a good year for him. Only played in 39 games, had 4 home runs, 11 RBI. But, yeah, 2 years ago he had a good season. He hit 23 home runs, and he had about 90 RBI. So, let's get him back to that level. What do you say?
Number 4.
Oh, man, we will keep it rolling here on our 6 at 6 on KCMO. Let's go to DeSoto. Fox 4 reporting that the city of DeSoto has expressed interest in a nuclear reactor facility going in its city limits. Mayor Rick Walker sent a letter to the Kansas Department of Commerce regarding this on November 20th. Communities across Kansas have said they want to be considered for the TerraPower project. The Bill Gates-founded company, along with the state and Evergy, signed a memorandum of understanding dealing with this back in September. So, nuclear power is something that Mike Thompson's talked a lot about on this show, and he's a big fan of. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of anything Bill Gates is doing, but I'm willing to hear more. And the city of DeSoto is saying basically as they continue to grow and attract energy-intensive industries, it's important to understand all potential long-term energy options because, of course, they've got that Panasonic plant going on out there as well. So let's see how it plays out. Let's see where the story goes. But it could be something that is absolutely worth watching.
Number 5.
Next up in the 6 at 6, the Utah man accused of killing Charlie Kirk made his first in-person court appearance yesterday. Tyler Robinson, 22, charged with aggravated murder stemming from the September 10th shooting of Charlie Kirk during a Turning Point USA event on the Utah Valley University campus. Prosecutors are planning to seek the death penalty in the case. Yesterday's hearing, in part, was the issue of cameras in the courtroom, which has been a key aspect of the case so far in a fight over media coverage. Robinson arrived yesterday with heavy security. He was in a dress shirt, tie, and slacks. He wore shackles on his waist, wrist, and ankles, and was seen smiling at his teary-eyed mother upon entering the courtroom. His father and brother were also seated in the front row. So that is going to be obviously something that the entire nation is going to be watching in the weeks to come out there in Utah. And we've got Harris Faulkner coming up this morning at 8:05. Just over an hour, Harris will be here because she interviewed Erica Kirk a couple of days ago, and it was a fantastic interview. So Harris will be here, 8:05. Don't miss it on 95.7 FM. If you are at the office by then, stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app or the iHeart app.
Number 6.
And last up, let's go to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Man, this story is getting wild. Michigan football coach Sharon Moore fired a couple of days ago, and now we got some more stunning developments yesterday. Sharon Moore, who is alleged to have had an inappropriate relationship with his staffer, one of his staffers, his assistant, was reported to be suicidal and had a knife after he went to the woman's house who he was allegedly having an affair with following his firing on Wednesday. He's been in jail since Wednesday night. We know the assistant was given a 55% raise to $90,000 a year last year. The university previously investigated claims of this inappropriate relationship with a staffer. He denied it. He was fired when the staffer came forward with evidence of the affair after he axed her. This is an absolute, utter mess in Michigan. There is your 6 at 6. Kendall Gammon on a Red Friday. Chiefs Chargers. We'll talk about it with him next. All right, we're hanging in there on a Red Friday. This team is in a place it has not been in a decade, and that is on the brink of missing the postseason if they do not beat the Chargers on Sunday. Kendall Gammon is here, our Chiefs analyst, former player, of course, on KCMO. The conversation is brought to you by Xfinity. Sports are unpredictable. The price of your internet should not be. Introducing the 5-year price guarantee. One consistent internet price, 5 years, no annual contracts guaranteed. All right, Kendall, as I noted, this is a place most guys on this roster have never been, and that is needing to win a mid-December game to even have a chance at the playoffs. How does that change the calculation? How does that change the energy and the atmosphere in that locker room?
You know what? It doesn't change it as much as I think most people would think, because it's such a high-pressure business to begin with, and you're putting so much on the line each and every week. But you are aware of it. Things can get a little tense at times when you know that's kind of a, as you mentioned correctly, do or die. And you're also right in the fact that this is just something simply that basically nobody on the team has ever had to deal with. And I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they come out and play. I expect them to play a good game, but I've expected that for quite a while, Pete. So it's been frustrating, no doubt.
Yeah, it has been. So, based on what happened on Sunday night, what do you feel like this week has been the focus of for Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Matt Nagy, and the entire coaching staff?
Well, I think from an offensive standpoint, it's making sure you can get the offensive line together as much as possible on the same page. And, of course, lots of injuries there. It sounds like, I haven't checked this morning, like Trey Smith may get back, but you're going to have at least two backups. And so that's an issue. That's something that we're seeing we're having issues with, is protecting Patrick. And I think because of that, the clock in his head of when he needs to get rid of the ball is speeding up, because he is getting hit and pressured so much. So I think that's job number one. And then I think job number two is probably coaches getting on the defensive side, especially the D-line of the fact of, you've got to play the entire game like you played coming out in the third quarter and a little bit into the fourth. There for a little while, the Chiefs defensive line, Chris Jones in particular, were basically unstoppable for a while, and that's what we expected the whole year, and just hasn't been that way.
No, it hasn't at all. Listen, there's been a lot of talk about Patrick Mahomes, obviously, and what kind of season he's having, and how much of this year is an indictment on him. I don't want to sit here right now with the season obviously still in limbo and play the blame game, but how much of this season do you put at his feet versus just looking at the team as a whole and saying, listen, there's a lot of guys who have underperformed this year? How do you stack that up, Kendall?
There's no doubt about that. It's never just one person. Now, if you ask Patrick, and the kind of leader he is, he would say, no, this is on me. And he would say all the right things, and he would believe it, because he does believe it's on him, I think, at times. But it's simply not that way. I will never get off my soapbox of right now, but in general, he's the best player to ever play that position and the things he can do. But there's just a lot that's going on, and it is never one player. And I think if you asked anybody in that locker room, they would say as much. And if they were going to indict anybody, the last person they would indict is Patrick Mahomes.
All right, so Kendall Gammon joining us on KCMO. The Chargers, obviously, year two under Jim Harbaugh, making the strides that I think we all expected because of the kind of coach that Jim Harbaugh is. But they haven't seen each other, obviously, since week one down in South America. So what's your read on this Chargers team and how this team has changed over the last 3 months?
Well, they've had some injuries. They're starting to get healthy again. Of course, they won that big game last week in overtime. But, I realize it's the Philadelphia Eagles, but, man, to just win in overtime by 3 points and you turned them over 5 times, you would think they would have ran away with that game. So I don't think this is the same Chargers team we saw earlier in the season. Justin Herbert has an issue with his left hand, and he's a gamer. He'll be out there and everything good to go. But I don't know. This is, as you said, a do-or-die situation for the Chiefs, and I think no matter who's coming in this week in Arrowhead, they're in for a tough test, because I do think the pride of the Chiefs is being tested. When you look at the Chargers, though, in general, We thought early on that they might challenge for the division title, and they may still to a degree, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like Denver's going to wrap that up. And I don't know. They're a little bit Jekyll and Hyde as well, even though they've got a much better record than the Chiefs.
Yeah. How about the weather? It looks like it's going to be maybe 15 degrees around kickoff for this noon game. Thank goodness it's not a primetime game on Sunday. So you got record cold for this time of year, at least, potentially facing both these teams at Arrowhead. Got to imagine that favors the team in Kansas City, not the team coming from Los Angeles. How about you, Kendall?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. You can't replicate that throughout the week. So you're right about that. Whereas, the Chiefs, when they go play, they're used to cold weather and generally can replicate things if they're going somewhere where it's going to be even colder if they're getting to the East Coast and whatnot. So that is a big deal. There's no doubt about it. And I think you'll see. I mean, that ball, even though they work those balls in, each ball gets worked in about 30 minutes with a brush and Mississippi mud and some other different things with that. When it gets cold, that ball starts to get slick. Even though with all the technology you have for the gloves and how sticky they become, you're going to see some issues because of the cold, no doubt.
What is for you, as someone who's obviously been there and been on the field when it's at 15 degrees, whether it's here or in Pittsburgh, what's the biggest thing when you're playing in a game that's going to be 10, 15 degrees and wind chills maybe close to zero? What's the biggest thing that you focus on as a player?
For me, it's just coming in and having that mindset of the elements and everything going on. I cannot do anything about that. And that's how I treat my life. Things that I can't do anything about, I refuse to worry about. It's the things that I can control in terms of how I get out there, in terms of keeping my hands warm, in terms of, having, as I said, that positive mindset. And the minute you start to think it's cold, it gets even colder. And so you've just got to let that go and understand that both teams are dealing with it.
Although I will say,
the other thing is
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no. The other thing is that I make sure and pre-order a drink that I'm going to need after the game.
Yeah, I was going to say though, these guys do have it a bit better than when you were playing. Where I see they've got these things that keep their helmets warm on the sideline now, and they've come a long way from your playing days when it comes to keeping warm. When you guys just got maybe a big jacket and that was about it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's kind of funny that the type of warm weather gear they have now, and I'll say this: head equipment manager Alan Wright does a great job of getting out there and finding technology to keep the players warm, the coaches warm with battery operated vests and things like that. So the technology that you have is a little bit better than when I was starting with the Steelers. And to stay warm, we would wear pantyhose. I mean, they just didn't have
Yeah.
they just didn't have things. I mean, you were doing anything you could do.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, Kendall. So the Chargers, as you noted, they have a short week coming to Kansas City after playing on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Hopefully that benefits the Chiefs as well. They've got to travel here, going to be frigid temperatures. But the Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites. Frankly, I'm not sure they're worthy of being 5.5-point favorites over the Chargers right now, but that's what Vegas has it set at. What are you taking on Sunday?
Yeah, that's interesting because it was 4.5 and it's moved up, like you said. I'm going to take the Chiefs because they're at home and the frigid weather, and for a lot of reasons that you just brought up. Because there's been a few other interviews I've done where I've taken the Chargers. That I keep taking the Chiefs, but I think I'm going to 21-17.
All right, 21-17. For those wondering, that would also be hitting the under on the 44,
yes.
or 40, down to 41.5, actually. It opened at 44.5, now at 41.5. All right, good work there, Kendall. Let's talk Monday, hopefully after a win, my friend.
Sounds good. Stay warm.
All right, yeah, stay warm. We're going to need that this weekend, no doubt about it. 5.5 points, a big number. But it's like Vegas is begging you to take the Chargers. So that's what always makes me nervous as well. All right, fellas, give me something good. What are you thinking for Sunday at noon?
I'm going to go Chiefs 17, Chargers 13.
All right.
So Chargers cover.
Low scoring, Chargers cover, Chiefs get the win at home.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess Butker's got to make a field goal there then in this frigid weather.
There will be one time they get down in the red zone and can't get in the end zone.
All right.
He makes it a close one.
All right. John, what are you thinking for Sunday, my man?
Let's see. For the Chiefs' last chance, part 3, I will go 17-14. I'll take that extra point Mark didn't take there.
With the Chiefs win?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Chiefs win 17-14. Oh, man. Something, I don't know. This game just stinks to me. Something about it, I don't like. I know it's a short week for the Chargers. I know it's the team going from the West Coast to, obviously, not the East Coast, but the middle time zone. Their body clock's going to be 10 in the morning. It's going to be 15 degrees. All right, you guys have me sold. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'll say 20-17. I mean, we're all in the same ballpark. I'll go Chiefs 2017, but I would go with the Chargers plus the 5.5. That's just too big a number for me right now.
All through the franchise histories with these teams, there have been field goal games.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, they do. They've played close games, even when the Chiefs had that big winning
back
streak.
Into the 80s even.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, there you go. Go to FanDuel, of course, our favorite sports betting partner here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM, both sides of state line. Of course, now Missouri is opened up as well. Coming up on a Friday morning, some of you I know are getting set for holiday parties tonight. We've got ours next week here at work. Well, a new article from the Associated Press has some rules and regulations for the holiday party. What are they? We'll share them on a Friday with you on KCMO.
Hey, it's Vince Gallane's Catch My News Show at 11 o'clock after Kevin Keatsman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Big headline here from the Associated Press they dropped last night. Office holiday parties can be dreadful for introverts and people with social anxiety. A story on how to handle the holiday party. All right. You guys going to the holiday party next week, by the way? I'm gonna see you out there.
Be there later.
Yeah, I'll be there a little late. We've got the city tournament for basketball Tuesday afternoon. So.
All right. So you're going to stop by, though, Mark?
I'll be there late.
Mark's always the guy at the holiday party, and when they're doing the giveaways, he's trying to figure out how to basically collect as much free stuff as he can.
Oh, yeah.
That's who Mark is.
That's the best way to avoid the insecurities that I have around the office. Just kidding.
Well, this article starts off, by the way, with a radio station story. It says here, the year the radio station company where he worked held its holiday party at a dive bar, Ryan Arnold walked in and saw coworkers passing around a tall glass boot filled with beer. Boy, was that at our party one year? I don't think so. He heard the office manager belting out 80s power ballads between whiskey shots. Arnold's first thought was, when can I leave? Well, this was actually 20 years ago, as the article notes. More than 20 years later, he still remembers that awkward social event he felt obligated to attend. Arnold, 46 years old, who describes himself as socially anxious, now thinks twice before accepting invitations to group gatherings. Yeah, that's when radio was really going wild.
Yeah, 10 years ago, they didn't have HR videos to watch.
Yeah. Do we have another one to do here in the next couple of weeks?
Probably.
Gosh, every month I'm like, I just did one of these HR videos. Either you think I'm a good person or you don't. Leave me alone with this crap. Man. All right. Goes on to say here, for many introverts, shy individuals, and people with social anxiety, mingling at parties is often draining or arouses uncomfortable emotions. The internal debate about whether or not to attend large get-togethers can get especially intense during the holiday season, a time when many coworkers celebrate with cocktail hours, gift exchanges, and other forms of organized fun. Attending work parties also leaves some people feeling uncertain about professional boundaries, which can get murky at events where people drink alcohol. Therapists and workers who consider themselves shy or introverted shared tips for surviving and potentially enjoying winter festivities, whether with coworkers, family, or friends. All right, who's ready for the tips? Ready for the tips? Tip number 1, dress for comfort. It's like John. I mean, John's always dressing good, man. John shows up at these things, and boy, he just knocks it out of the park. John doesn't, people always ask. I mean, I do these happy hours, these politics and a pints. It's like people just want to talk to John. They want to say, where's John? Where's John? I don't know why I show up to these things.
Yeah, I think yearbook picture when I go to these events. And so I don't normally wear that type of thing around.
No. That's why it's obviously extra special when you show up. It's like going to the, No Kings protest. You got to have the right outfit, whether it's the fishnet tee or whatever it might be. It's got to be the right setup. Dress for comfort. Arrive early and head to the middle. Don't stand on the outside. Plan talking points. Don't stress about awkward silence. Seek allies or bring support. So for you introverts, those are some tips that you need if you've got your holiday party coming up. All right? That's all I got for you.
There's one more for our party. If Chuck asks you if you want to go camping, the answer is always no.
Yeah. I've learned this with Chuck Nasty over on 101 The Fox. If Chuck asks you to do anything, the answer is no. Okay? I don't care what it is. Chuck Nasty, just think no.
I've given him a ride before, and maybe I should have said no.
Yeah. Keatsman has never met Chuck Nasty. These guys have never seen each other.
Uh-oh.
2 radio legends in Kansas City do not know each other. So I'm hoping that Chuck will be at the holiday party, although, we'll have to wait and see how Chuck's holding up that day.
Usually there.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Mike in Kansas City, what advice do you have, my man? Go ahead.
Yeah, the article's aimed obviously to woke people because that's what most articles are, and you basically summed up the woke movement. They're made up of people who are insecure, they don't do well in crowds, they don't do anything. So they were that way in grade school, high school, college. Now they dye their hair pink, put safety pins to their nose, and go protest ICE or whatever, the cause of the day is.
Listen, Mike, I appreciate the outside the box thinking. Let's be honest. That is a total stretch and blanket statement.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, you're
sorry,
right.
It
There's
isn't.
no introverts who are conservatives. You're right, Mike. Conservatives
there
love
are
to
introverts
party.
that are conservative. No, there are introverts that aren't conservative. They just manage it better. An introvert's conservative thinks that, the problem is with him. An introvert who's liberal thinks the problem is with society.
Here's what I would say.
Basically the thing.
I think it's geared towards younger people because younger people are more likely to work from home, be more socially awkward. Listen, I work with people who are, I'm not an old guy, right? I'm millennial. But you get some of the Gen Zers, and God bless them, they're all pleasant. But you get around them, and it's like, hello. Do you speak English? Do you talk if I say hello to you in the hallway? Are you a mute? What are you laughing at there, Mark? Stop.
Yeah.
You're right?
I've seen it.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's more about a generational thing than it is about anything political. Coming up next, are we getting hosed on gas prices in Kansas City? I just want to open up the phones to you and talk about this next.
from Gladstone to Gardner. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like there's some kind of collusion happening when it comes to gas prices in the Kansas City area. Now, I know we're trending in the right direction. KCTV5 had the story. Gas prices hit a 4-year low just in time for holiday travel. On the Missouri side, statewide prices are averaging about $2.59 a gallon as of yesterday. It's 5 cents less than last week, 8 cents less than last year. So this is great. In Kansas City, Missouri, gas prices averaging $2.63 per gallon. 7 cents less than last week, 4 cents less than last year. So prices are coming down. That's outstanding. But we were at the happy hour the other night at Beck's place in Overland Park. And one guy in particular, we were talking about just, cost of things. He goes, I was down at Emporia. And he goes, I couldn't believe the gas prices. It's like $2 a gallon, $2.10 a gallon. So I looked it up on Gas Buddy, and there's a Casey's down there that's got gas right now at $2.14 a gallon. That's unbelievable.
This is good for me. I have a gymnastics meet there this weekend.
All right, well, fill up.
I'm filling up at Casey's.
Just make sure you can get there.
Yeah.
All right, don't try to run out of gas just to get there. You've got places out in western Kansas where you've got some of the cheapest gas right now in the state. You've got a Maverick in Garden City that's at $2.10 a gallon. You've got a Love's out there that's $2.10 a gallon. You got a Love's in McPherson that is $2.16 a gallon. Abilene has a Casey's at $2.19 a gallon. But I feel like everything I'm seeing around Kansas City is anywhere from $2.60 to $2.80. So I don't know if we're getting the big city collusion going on here, but there's no reason for the price to basically be 25% higher in Kansas City than it is in Emporia. I just don't understand it. Now, Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary for the White House, was talking about gas prices yesterday, and she noted this as well.
President Trump has also delivered resoundingly on his promise to end Joe Biden's insane war on American energy and make sure our country has reliable and affordable energy produced right here at home. As a result, the nationwide average for regular gas just fell to its lowest level in nearly 5 years. According to data from Gas Buddy released on Monday, average gas prices have now dipped below $3 per gallon in 37 states, below $2.75 per gallon in 22 states, and below $2.50 per gallon in 5 states. Just a few years ago, we saw record high price gas of nearly $5 per gallon. American families faced constant pain at the pump, and those costs caused the price of everything else to go up as well.
So that was White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. And, I'm glad they're bragging about this, right? I mean, you've got their political opponents and their media allies just hammering the issue of affordability. And trust me, I'm not saying everything's perfect at all, but gas prices are coming down. And even though they're down just a bit from last year, there's a positive trend there. And there's a story to tell, which they have to do a better job of telling. On the Missouri side, there is a Costco and also the Costco down in Springfield is now running $1.99 a gallon. Same thing with the Sam's Club down there. The Buc-ee's is at $2.05 a gallon down in Springfield. You got a Woody's in Joplin that's $2.17 a gallon. Same thing with a Walmart down there, $2.17 a gallon. So you're just seeing much better prices out of state, it seems like, or the outstate area, John.
Well, it's interesting, too, because when you're on the interstate, usually the stations right off the interstate are up a nickel, maybe over if you went further in town. So $2.05 at Buc-ee's right there on I-44 is a pretty good deal.
It's a great deal. I've got this on the text line. Pete, Quick Trip sets the prices in Kansas City because they can. So all the other stations follow along with it. But, I don't want to sit here, and I don't know if that's true or not. I don't want to sit here and blame Quick Trip because then if I'm Phillips 66 or I'm anybody else, I'd say screw Quick Trip. If I can do this at 10, 20, 30 cents a gallon cheaper and get more business out of it, then I'm going to do that. Mark's in Overland Park. What's up, Mark? You're on KCMO.
Good morning, Pete. I'm the guy that was in Emporia the day after Thanksgiving. Pulled off to get the $2.29 a gallon gas at Phillips 66. I'm about halfway full, filling up. I look across the street, and Walmart's got it at $2.19. and Walmart's making money at $2.19. And up here in Kansas City, we're paying $2.60, $2.70. We are getting gouged by Quick Trip.
So you just think it's Quick Trip basically squeezing the market?
Well, if you drive around town, Quick Trip in Olathe is cheaper than what Quick Trip is at 77th and Metcalf. You go, their prices are all over they're sometimes 10 cents, 12 cents difference from one location here just in the metro area. So.
I mean, I admit I don't know exactly how that works, but I'm glad that you called in, Mark. So that was the two of us having that conversation?
Yes, it's
well, I apologize. I don't remember. I obviously talked to a lot of people the other day, but I'm glad you called in and confirmed that was you, Mark. It was great to see you the other night.
We had a great time. You keep up. You have a great show.
Thank you very much there, Mark. I appreciate that. I don't know who to blame, but it would seem to me in a free market environment, if Quick Trip is trying to squeeze the entire metro, if I am one of their competitors and I can go 20, 30 cents a gallon cheaper, I'm going to do it to then drive up my business. I may not have the same profit margin on a per gallon basis, but I would think then that the amount of business increase I would get out of it would make up for that profit margin on a per gallon basis.
Yeah, you get people buying drinks and hot dogs and everything else.
Well, that's the other thing. Most of these gas stations make the money off of what they sell in the store, in the convenience location, not at the pump. Frank the Capitalist, what's up, Frank?
Hey, good morning, Pete. I cannot vouch for the accuracy of this, but I can give you some information that I got a number of years ago. Went down to the lake of the Ozarks. Down to Table Rock Lake. And I figured, okay, let's put gas in the car in Springfield. Let's fill it up because when you get to the lake, gas gets really expensive in my mind. That's what I'm thinking. Get down to Branson West, and gas is cheaper there than it was in Springfield. And so I just started asking some questions, some fairly knowledgeable people, and they said, well, part of it is because of the additives that are required in metropolitan areas by the EPA. That adds to some of the price. When you get down to Emporia, Hutchinson, Kansas actually has really cheap gas if you're headed that direction. That's because they are literally sitting right on top of a refinery. Transportation costs are lower to get the fuel to Emporia and Hutchinson than it is to get the fuel to here. I can't vouch for that being all the reason, because I'm sure that if Quick Trip sets a price and no one challenges on it, the free market's got it, buddy. You're a free market person, so you'd appreciate that. So,
no, exactly. So you're suggesting there are additives that are required based on what local regulations and laws that then would drive up the price in a major metropolitan area like Kansas City.
Yeah, that's what I was told. Now, I tell you what, if you could get someone from one of those companies on to kind of either dispel that rumor, that may be an urban legend. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But it begins because as you drive out away from the metropolitan area, gas does get cheaper. I'm just coming out of Shawnee now.
Always been that way.
$2.69.
Yeah.
So, and if you get in closer to Kansas City, I'll be there in a few minutes. I bet we're sitting at $2.84, $2.79, $2.84 at a Quick Trip.
We know that when it comes to, obviously, the states have their own taxes and things like that. Thanks, Frank. States have their own taxes that obviously play a role in gas prices. Like, that's why California is still sitting at $4 a gallon. I just wasn't aware that municipalities or counties, I knew that states could drive up the cost of gasoline because of their own state taxes. But I didn't think that there were actually local regulations, local taxes maybe, that may then drive it up, let's say, in Kansas City compared to Emporia or Springfield. 913-408-7957. Jim in DeSoto. Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, good morning, Pete.
Jim, sorry, buddy. The phone's out there in DeSoto, brother. You there, Jim?
Yes, hello.
All right, go ahead, Jim.
At Harps in DeSoto, $2.33.9 a gallon. Right now.
Great.
You hear
I'll
me?
try to get out there this afternoon.
Hey, Denver area. On Sunday, I looked at gas, buddy. $1.71.9 a gallon in areas of Denver.
Oh, I know.
If anybody's going to put additives to whatever in a metropolitan area, it's going to be Denver because they have so many more cars than we do, and they have the brown cloud effect that goes in and out of Denver every day.
And they've got a very blue, obviously, political operation there. You're right about that. But I see the headlines like Trump people are bragging about gas prices in Denver. I'm like, why are we not getting that in Kansas City? I can't figure that out. Tom in Grain Valley. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I think it has something to do with city taxes. I live in Grain Valley, and if I go to Lee Summit or Blue Springs or Kansas City, I'm paying 8 to 10 cents more per gallon. So Grain Valley is still Jackson County, still state of Missouri, but I feel like there's got to be some sort of city tax in play here.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to figure out today because I'm sick of seeing everyone bragging about these low gas prices everywhere, except for where we live right now. Which is like, not that $2.79 is bad compared to where we were, let's say, in 22.
I was going to say, it's all relative there.
Exactly.
I paid $2.69 yesterday in Grandview.
I got to fill up today before the weekend, before this 10-degree weather comes in. Let's go to Mark. He's in Independence. What's up, Mark?
Hey, I just wanted to say, back when Trump in his first term, right before he left office, the Quick Trip in Independence at 23rd Street and Lee Summit Road, they were among the cheapest in the country. They were like $1.72. I took a picture of it. And also, when you're pricing things, especially people like Quick Trip, they have to be careful because they cannot price things below their fixed cost, or else you get hit with a federal violation for price fixing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense to me, Mark. Thanks so much. Kevin at Overland Park. Good morning, Kevin.
Hey, Pete. Hey, a couple things. I have a friend of mine that is the CDL driver and used to deliver fuel to gas stations. And basically all the trucks go to the same depots to get their fuel. He would literally go to a depot, and if one set of tanks did not have fuel, you just go to another one. So it's not like there's different brands of depots per se. And then secondly, yesterday I just paid $2.59 for. There's a gas station that's close to my shop. They are consistently 10 to 20 cents less per gallon all the time. Now they have stickers on their pumps saying they encourage their customers to pay cash, and their convenience side is very small, so it's not like they make a ton of money on the inside. So don't know how they do it, but just food for thought there.
Well, that's just, I would like to think that that's just capitalism working, right? Where they're basically saying, hey, you know what? We'll undercut our competitors by 10 to 20 cents. We'll try to encourage people to pay cash, and they'll see if it works for their business. And if they don't have a large convenience presence, they may just be rolling with it and saying, let's see how this goes. And obviously it's worked well enough for them because they're still doing it, right? On the text line, Pete, Mid-America Regional Council ultimately ends up picking our fuel blend, which also could increase the cost here in the Kansas City area. Okay. Well, I see all these stories about these gas prices, and I just wanted to get to the bottom of it and try to figure it out. And now I know what I'm going to be doing this weekend, which is try to get somebody on the line on Monday to understand why we're paying 50, 60 cents more per gallon than Emporia and Springfield, and like $1 more a gallon than Denver, which is obviously a major metropolitan area and is more or less right down the road. That's just because I'm seeing the Trump administration brag about $1.89 in Denver. And I'm like, why are we paying $1 more here in Kansas City? But once again, when you compare it to where we were a couple of years ago with the last guy,
come on, man.
I'll take it. I'll take $2.69 a gallon. I'll take it for now. But I'm still not thrilled when I see these other prices being at $2 a gallon. Coming up, Harris Faulkner is going to be here at 8:05. She had a huge interview with Erica Kirk a couple of days ago. Erica just blasted some of the wacky conspiracies that are going on out there about her husband. So we'll be joined by Harris Faulkner coming up in 15 minutes. Do not miss it right here on 95.7 FM. And you can always stream us on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Next, the wildest story of the week that is just getting crazier.
from the nation's heartland. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
This is just a wild story out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, where they are now searching for a new head football coach after they fired Sharon Moore on Wednesday. So this happened while we were at the happy hour that we did at Beck's Place in Overland Park. So I get out of that. I look at my phone for the first time in a couple hours, and I'm like, what? And not only did they fire this guy, but the reports that are coming out as to what has happened in the wake of this firing of Sharon Moore are just wild. So here are the allegations. First off, he's sitting in jail right now because not only did he allegedly have a relationship with a staffer that went sideways, he reportedly became suicidal after he got fired on Wednesday. He took a knife. He went to his mistress's apartment, and reports are suggesting that he went there and he threatened her and he threatened himself. And that's why he's sitting in a jail cell. Like, this is not just, hey, powerful multi-million-dollar football coach has an affair and, oh boy, this is a bad look, and now he's got a lot of family problems and he gets fired. He is sitting in a jail cell. So there are obviously serious allegations in the wake of his firing and in the wake of this alleged affair going public that have taken this thing to a whole different level from like your Bobby Petrino, former Arkansas coach, or any of these other coaches who, let's be honest, not the first one to end up in a fling with a staffer. These guys spend, 18, 20 hours a day at their facility. They have young women who are obviously working on the staff, and none of this is excusing any of it at all. It's just saying you've seen this story happen before. But what makes this beyond bizarre is the fallout from it, because the coach is sitting in a jail cell and charges are expected to be dropped at some point this morning when it comes to the former Michigan head coach, Sharon Moore, who took over for Jim Harbaugh, who's now, of course, the head coach of the Chargers, who are coming to Kansas City on Sunday to play the Chiefs. So he's set for a court appearance this morning when we'll find out what exactly these charges are going to be. But the university previously investigated claims of this inappropriate relationship with a staffer. He denied it. He then gets fired when the staffer comes forward with evidence of the affair after he axed her. Michigan football insiders are reporting, per ESPN, that Moore had been acting strange and berating assistant coaches. And then he shows up to her apartment, allegedly, with a knife following his firing. Now, this coach has a wife and 3 little kids at home, too. That's just the tragic part about this. But you know what's really weird and bothersome is that some people are going to try to make out Sharon Moore to be the victim here. And I find that to be disgusting. The victim, allegedly, may be the staffer who was threatened with a knife. The other victims are his family. And that's it. Sharon Moore, based on these reports, not a victim. But yesterday, there was a report here from NBC that Michigan had been alerted prior to Wednesday that Sharon Moore was dealing with mental health issues. Yet the athletic director fired him alone with no HR rep and no security present. Oh, jeez. Oh, he didn't have the HR rep present as he was dealing with mental health issues. You gotta be bleeping kidding me with that. Jeez. His wife's the victim, the kids are the victim, the staffer's potentially the victim, not the guy who gets fired without the HR rep present. My gosh. Harris Faulkner, Fox News, after her big interview with Erica Kirk, joins us next. I thought it was the interview of the week in news media. That was our good friend Harris Faulkner's conversation with Erica Kirk a couple of days ago. Of course, you've got the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson, showing up in court yesterday. And on top of that, you've got obviously just an amazing interview that was done by Harris, who is now joining us on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio, always streaming on the iHeart, TuneIn, and KCMO Talk Radio apps as well. Harris, good morning. Great job a couple of days ago. And what was the main thing that you wanted to draw out of Erica Kirk when you sat down with her on Wednesday? Hello?
Hello, are you there?
There we go. We got you loud and clear, Harris.
Yes.
I was getting nervous.
Plugging in my earbuds so I can hear you. I'm in a loud environment in the newsroom this morning, which is rare for me. So look, there was absolutely nothing I was trying to pull out of her. We had her on for the first 50 minutes of our hour of Outnumbered and had covered the gamut with a lot of things. This was something she wanted to talk about and had requested to sit with me, and so we did.
That's awesome. Okay, so she went to you. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, well, I mean, she was on our show.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we're there, and we knew that there was this topic that she wanted to touch on, and you know, I'm sitting next to her. I'm a journalist. I'm right there with her. We cleared the couch. It was just the two of us. But I had no idea how angry she was. I had never seen her like that. It was palpable. And two things were palpable to me. Her pain. You know, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you know, she's out there, she's very glossy, she's got a lot of accessories. I see the stuff that's out there too. I see the conspiracies. I see all of that. But from a standpoint of someone covering it, you know, you're covering the whole spectrum of it, and you're covering the person who is at the heart of those potential threats. After having her husband assassinated, I guess I was sort of applying my own type of wisdom to, well, people won't go too far. Oh, people do. And that pain and that stress around worrying if her staff members or she or her children will be next in line for a violent interpretation of the threat around her, for someone to actually do something, is real. It's hurtful. It's distracting. And that was the moment that she pulled me into that moment as only someone in that much pain can, because you can't even imagine what they're going through. So you don't even know. Once I sort of, and you've physically seen me react to it, I say, wow, I've never seen, and I scoot to the edge of my seat so I can turn to her more. She wanted to directly look at me while she said these things, and said that to me, because she feels like people don't listen when she says enough is enough. And she has said that, I guess, privately. But that was something that needed to be said worldwide and to the haters. And by the way, part of the stream of information around Erica Kirk now is also faith and beauty and kindness and love from millions of people around the globe. And you know, I have always said that sometimes the Lord puts us into positions and takes us through things so that others can see how we react. And if we fall deeper on Him and become stronger, or if we fold and hide. And I asked her, you know, do you think people just expected you to go away? And she said, I don't know what they expected, but that's not what's going to happen. And in that moment of her taking charge of her own reaction to the conspiracy theories and the death threats, as a mom, I understood too, it's not just about her. Like, her children are 3 and 1. And Peter, you and your wife have young children. You know how that is. We are public people. And there have been times in my career I had a stalker. So who wanted to kill me too broke into my home in Kansas City when I was on the air there. It became national and beyond that international news, and I became the story, which I hated. But I wrote a book, my first, called God Has a Plan, Breaking News. And the reason I wrote that was because that was my moment to push in deeper to the Lord. And really before that, I mean, I had the kind of faith that my parents had raised me in, but it wasn't my own. And I see it deepening in her. Mm-hmm. And the more she talks about her faith, just like Charlie in some ways, everybody's road and walk is different, particularly their spiritual walk. But every time she talks about it and brings that into her life, she gets stronger, but so does the hate. Because evil would love nothing more than for us just to all sit down and stop shining lights on the dark sides of the planet. And so I just was a journalist in that moment asking questions. But I got pulled into a fury that I do understand. Mm-hmm. And, you know, having lived in Kansas City when that happened to me, a lot of people around town know it was hard. But I hadn't lost someone to an assassination. Like, this is next level. And the hate out there, you see it. We all see it. What's your take on it?
I think it's disgusting. And I think that you highlighting that on your show with Erica Kirk the other day was a really important moment in this conversation, because it seemed like a lot of people are kind of afraid to say what needs to be said about some of the individuals. And, you know, we can just name them, Candace Owens and others, who are, let's be honest, too, in this media climate where everyone is starving for attention, making a lot of money off of these conspiracies and off of these clicks. And it's gross, but it's the environment, as you well know, Harris, media finds itself in right now, where sometimes just the crazy of the crazy get clicks, get attention, and then it can make a lot of money off of it. And that's the sinister part of this that really is bothersome to me, and it seems like is bothersome to a lot of people who may be ideologically like-minded to what some of these people are doing by and large.
You know, I want to be careful about the name dropping and all of that, because the facts and history have shown, and you can never change history. That's why I love it so much, because it is truth that cannot be moved, cannot be manipulated. It already happened. But what we know from elections and other big events in America, at least in the last 5 to 8 years, and maybe longer than that, the manipulation that can go on social media and other places for clicks and all of that, that money isn't coming often on our soil. It's coming from offshore, from foreign entities that really want to just create chaos in the United States. They don't care about our politics. They don't care about, you know, in particular, individuals in our landscape of fame. But what they do care about is weakening a country from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I'm careful to mention those names, because I do think that they are tied to some foreign dollars that are fueling that, just like those dollars that crept in before. And if that is in fact happening past its prologue, that's a dangerous situation, because some of these are countries that execute and assassinate on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And that is not who you want to be accepting money from. And the fact that there are people for clicks who will do things, you know, the thirst is real, as we say. We want to be the United States of America. We do not want to be what we are becoming now, the United States of attention, because there's a price for that. And we will pay it.
Yeah.
Charlie paid it with his life. And our type of republic is not sustainable with that kind of lack of freedom, you know, put out like a candle from outside forces, because there are complicit forces who just peddle in hate, traffic in whatever they can to get attention. It's more than disgusting. Mm-hmm. It's existential. And I consider it to be spiritual warfare and existential in that particular way as well. But certainly existential for the well-being of our citizens. When you go after anybody in America and you are taking money to do it, that's a paid assassin. Let's be careful with that. So I don't name names because I know how high the stakes are. I'm going to let the Lord take care of it, but I just laid it out. That's a paid assassination type of situation because that's where this goes with too much of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's just time to do great journalism. And I was honored both in that moment and in also a recent moment when someone who's also taken a great deal of blowback, the number one female rapper right now in the world, Nicki Minaj, wanted to go to the United Nations upon request of U.S. Ambassador Michael Waltz and the President of the United States and fight for Christians a world away, some of whom may never know she's fighting for them against their persecution. She doesn't have to do that. But now she's in focus, if you will, to steal the title of my show. She's in focus right now of those people who are blowing up too, but she's got a lot of barbs, meaning those women and men around the world who love her, barbs with a Z.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, all I can say is that I'm seeing that love envelop Erica Kirk too, because when you tell people what you're going through and what you're willing to do to fight for yourself and the people that you worry about, well, now they have something they can work with. And so I could no more have pulled that out or told her to do this or what. There is no way that anybody could have known that she would have, first of all, the strength to do that at a time when she's still grieving. 90 days ago exactly, on the day that she and I sat this week on Wednesday, from the day her husband was assassinated, September 10th to November 10th, 90 days.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
She is grieving. And if you've ever lost, and I have lost both my parents in the last few years, and people love their parents, and we know that we only grow in one direction. We're blessed with longevity when we get it. But when you lose a parent, you lose part of your North Star. You know, that's the compass that was on your life for so long when you didn't know how to make your own way in the world and have a direction. So that pain is unimaginable. But we know it's coming because they were growing older. That's not what happened with Charlie Kirk. He was snuffed out.
Mm-hmm.
And hate-driven, things about this country that we have to pay attention to and try and fix. The attention shouldn't be on those who hate and would weaponize hate for cash. The attention should be on those who are doing the opposite. And look, if it's politics and you don't like anybody's politics, that's one thing. If it's religion and you want to worship another way, that's another thing. But it's about having the freedom to do all of that without having the threat of death, death threats, conspiracies. So I think it was a seminal moment just in the conversation that we all have around the Kirk family and around Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action. But I think it's a wider one about politics, too. You know, I don't want anybody on any lane of politics to get hurt.
Yeah.
That hurts our country. So this is a huge issue. And don't think for a second that there aren't clicks happening in that lane with dollars flowing in as well.
Yeah. That's so true. Harris, it was a great interview. Thank you for fitting us in on a busy Friday morning. Faulkner Focus coming up 10 o'clock Central Time on Fox News. And we are always grateful for your time here on KCMO, and got to get the Chiefs back on track this weekend. Try to make that playoff
You
run.
know what? It's going to happen.
All right.
It's going to happen. It may not be this season. And they've had 3 Super Bowl wins. You know, again, let's focus on what's good. They've been 5 times. I mean, I lived there for a long time, and it had been decades since they've done any of that. So it's a blessing to have them where they are. I'm not going to put shine, though, where it needs extra polish beneath the surface. They've got some things to figure out.
Yes.
You cannot go through life without a defense. You cannot go through life without an offense. You need both. So I would imagine in football, it's even more present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Harris, have a great weekend. I know you got a busy Friday, couple shows, and we are always grateful for your time back in Kansas City. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
You as well. Harris Faulkner on KCMO. Amazing job as always. Faulkner Focus, 10 o'clock Central. Great to have her on the show. Mayor Lucas is going to be here at 9:30. We missed him yesterday with our Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. We raised $107,000. Great job by everybody in this audience. Big time money, record-setting day for us. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your generosity. Coming up, I couldn't help but have a good laugh at this story next.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him Trump. No!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him Trump. No! Heck no!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him Trump. No!
No!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him Trump.
Heck no! I love that.
They just ripped the whole thing off of another protest. Which side are you on? It's the same too.
Everybody now.
That's the
Which
thing.
side are you on?
So
Nothing new since Woody Guthrie.
So that was from August, and that was in reference to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is back in the news this morning. A federal judge blocked the government from re-detaining Kilmar Abrego Garcia at a scheduled Immigration and Customs Enforcement check-in this morning. The intervention came after the same judge ruled yesterday that the Trump administration lacked legal authority to continue holding Abrego in an immigration detention center. Abrego was detained during a similar scheduled check-in back in August. This is wild. You've got a unelected bureaucrat, a judge, basically saying that the executive branch cannot enforce the laws of the country. That whether or not you think Kilmar Abrego Garcia should be deported or not, I mean, that's obviously left up to you on whether or not you think that rises to the point of deportation. But it doesn't really matter because the law allows the government to deport somebody who broke the country's laws. Whether or not he's the biggest threat to the country isn't the point. The point is a law was broken and a federal judge is preventing the duly elected president of the United States from enforcing immigration laws of the country. How jacked up is that? As NBC News reports here, Abrego is fighting new deportation efforts following his wrongful removal to El Salvador in March and subsequent return to the U.S. over the summer. In a Thursday ruling, U.S. District Judge Paula Zenas of Maryland ordered that Abrego be released from the processing center he's been in Pennsylvania, citing a lack of a final order of removal for him. On Friday, she also granted requests by his attorneys, which blocks the Trump administration from re-detaining Abrego until she can conduct a hearing on the temporary restraining order his attorneys had filed. The U.S. District Judge also reminded the parties of her orders from months ago that says the government must give Abrego 72 hours of written notice if they intend to deport him to another country. Abrego's legal team said yesterday afternoon that he was released. He arrived at home last night, did not speak to the media that was gathered before being hurried inside with a jacket partly shielding his face. Hey, everybody. Now, one more time there, Mark, on the song, if you could, please.
Kilmar is our neighbor.
You can't have him. No. Mark Falter on the markets and more next.
From Overland Park to Parkville, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
Man, oh man, oh man. Markets are front and center. Everyone's talking about the economy, affordability, interest rates come down a hair this week. There's a lot to cover right now with our good friend, Mark Falter, Retirement Income Hour, airing Saturdays and Sunday mornings, 9 o'clock, right here on KCMO Talk Radio. Mid-American Wealth Advisory Group here in Kansas City. All right, Mark, let's just do the 35,000-foot view right now. What are the top 1, 2, 3 things that you are watching end of the year in terms of how the economy and the market at large is reacting to everything happening in the world and in this country?
Thanks for having me on again, Pete. I think the biggest things we're looking at right now is the amount of debt that companies have and the fact that they're being forced to refinance at a higher rate. So it's already in debt and we're having to refinance at a higher rate. That's like a double whammy. AI pulling back, and we're already starting to see that happen. And just lots of companies, stocks still being bought that just aren't making any money. It's looking similar. I have been saying similar on a small scale, and then my guys are telling me, no, it's about the same as it was back in 1999. I don't know if people remember Greenspan talking about irrational exuberance. We are irrationally exuberant and looking like we're going to have another little dip.
Okay, so you're saying that the AI bubble is eerily similar and reminiscent to the dot-com bubble?
Yeah, matter of fact, I was literally pulling that up to run a similarity right as I got the call to be on here today. It's amazing because you got companies, if you remember back in the dot-com bubble, what was going on in 1998 and 99 was people were buying IPOs, and it was almost like you were guaranteed to make money. Of course, you can't say that in the market, but they were. Everything was making money. And these companies were making money on the stock, buying and selling it, a lot of day trading. And everybody's asking Warren Buffett, why in the world aren't you buying? He's like, dude, these are the numbers are not right. You should not be buying this stuff. Greenspan even came on and said it. And then sure enough, things fared out and a handful of companies survived. And I think we're going to see a similar situation because everybody's into AI like it is the kind of the coolest thing, but it's created a bubble.
All right, so now the $1 million question is, well, who's going to survive, Mark Falter? Oh my gosh!
I think you're going to see we had Oracle came in with lower than expected earnings and of course a pullback. I don't think you're going to see them go under. I think NVIDIA is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, everybody comes in that's aggressively invested has got NVIDIA in their portfolio. As long as you don't need to sell it, fine. If you're 27 years old and you got NVIDIA in your whatever IRA, 401k, whatever, just keep it there. You don't need to sell it. But if you're 72 and you're thinking about required minimum distributions and NVIDIA is one of your biggest holdings, you really should consider reallocating. I'm not saying it's going to go under, but you're a year away from needing to pull money out,
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, you rode this thing this far. Don't get caught now if there's a downturn. So when you look ahead to 26, we thought 25 might see a downturn, and there was one in April, but now, we're higher than we were 1 year ago. So you can't time this stuff. I know that that's something you've said many times on this show, but is it more about the older person just kind of taking those profits off the table and not being greedy? Is that the message right now because of what could come in 26?
Yeah, I think it entirely is. If you want my honest gut feel, I think in 4 years, 3.5, 4 years, when the end of Trump's term, he's going to do whatever he's got to do to have this market up because he doesn't want to do what George Bush did. You remember how George Bush went from hero to zero? And, and it was the market that it was shock and all that took him to hero and .com that took him to zero. And we couldn't get him out quick enough. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to see that happen on his record because Donald Trump's reputation to Donald Trump is extremely important. But between now and then, who knows? And the biggest thing is to a 27-year-old investor, a 35-year-old investor, a 40-year-old investor, what I just said really doesn't matter. Actually, it's probably offering a great buying opportunity. But for that person that's 72 right now, you've ridden this thing now for almost 5, 6, 7 years. It is a really good time to reallocate.
Yeah, it is.
And you can go make 4% on your money still. You know?
Yeah, you're right about that. So, all right, what about this week's interest rate cut from the Fed? They did another small cut. That was priced in. It was expected. But what does it tell you about how the Fed is reading into the market and the economy as well?
I think it's going to be a small cut. I don't think it's going to be, and it's got a lot of pressure on the Fed right now. And we're going to get a changing of the guards here relatively soon. Who are they looking at getting in there? It's
Kevin Hassett, right? They're looking at for Fed chair?
Yeah, they're looking at that, and that's going to come relatively soon. And I think that Jerome Powell is going to be very, very happy to leave. He's tired of the pressure. I think he's done a great job. Frankly, I think he's done a great job. But so he's just over it. But so I think you're going to see a cut. But I think still inflation is still present. It's not 9% inflation, but it's still present, and it's affecting people's pocketbooks. I mean, it's expensive out there.
Well, the key, too, is getting those real wages up compared to inflation. And that was never going to happen overnight, but there is some data out there that suggests wages are slowly starting to catch up to what the inflation has been over the last few years. But listen, that was never going to happen in 10, 11 months. So they've got to try to keep, obviously, that trend moving in a positive direction. But you're right. It is expensive out there. Affordability and the economy is still issue number one. The job market is hanging tough, though. So what's your read on that?
I think, it's better than it has been. It could do better, but you're right. It's hanging tough, and companies are still hiring. They say they're not hiring as much right now. It's funny. I guess it all depends on the size of the company. I mean, we're looking for 5 people right now. We're always in a state of hiring. But overall, there's less companies wanting people to come to work. And I think it's a very bad time to judge in the month of December because you got a lot of coming and going on, because of the time of year it is.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point. So, as we tie it back to what we were talking about earlier, Mark Falter, Retirement Income Hour, Saturday and Sunday mornings at 9 here on KCMO. When you look to 2026, is there a timeline that you have? And what would be the thing that would finally potentially trigger an AI big tech sell-off?
I think if enough companies came in with bad earnings reports, that could spur it. There's a lot of things. We could have an entire show on that. Things going on in the political horizon that could cause things to happen. I think, I went to a football game with my analyst, and I said, I think the market could have a little pullback of 10, 12, 15%. He says, 15%? I hope it's 15. He says, it could go as much as 30%. I said, you're kidding. We need to do a radio show on this. And we went through all the different things that could potentially cause it to come back. Now, will it? I agree with you. We could end up at this time next year saying, well, it didn't pull back. I will just say this. If you're in that 3 years out from retirement, caution is a great thing right now because we have not been cautious at all. We've just been buying and buying and buying, and it's the smart thing to do anyways.
But, as we sit here, too, in what is a record amount of debt in this country and people still looking at the United States as the best bet and our stock market as the best bet in the world, where else are people going to dump their money? It seems like that's been a big reason for the exuberance in the markets going back 15 years at this point. So how would that reallocation happen? Not from individual investors, but from governments and hedge funds and places like that?
I think domestically is still the best place to invest. I think the U.S. economy is still holding up, strong. Jobs still okay. Consumers are still spending, and things are still going well. I don't think we're the cleanest shirt in the dirty laundry quite as bad as we have been in the past, but it's just we have let this market. Here's the thing I think that people got to remember. The market pulling back is not like a bad thing. It's a normal thing. That's what markets do. And I think the people that get hurt in this are those that are investing for a short-term period of time, but investing like they're long-term. That's eventually going to come back and bite you,
That's a good point. That's a very good point. All right, Mark. Well, great insight and great intel as always. Thank you for sharing it with us here on KCMO Talk Radio. We will be listening tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, my friend. Always appreciate your time.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks.
All right, have a great weekend. Mark Falter, Retirement Income Hour here on KCMO Talk Radio, and of course with Mid-American Wealth Advisory Group in Kansas City. Coming up, buy, sell, hold. Then we've got Donna Pitman, Channel 9 KMBC, is going to be in studio for our Feature Friday segment. And Mayor Lucas will be here at 9:30. We missed him yesterday. We were too busy raising $107,000 for Children's Miracle Network. So the mayor of Kansas City, kind enough to shift to a Friday 9:30 slot right here on KCMO.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
It is 8:48. Happy Red Friday. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. You can stream us, of course, on the iHeart, TuneIn, and KCMO Talk Radio apps. All right, it's a Friday morning. Let's do it.
It's time to buy, sell,
How about a damn 12 and a half, 15?
and hold.
All right, John, you got 3 questions there, my man. What is on the buy, sell, hold rundown today?
Buy, sell, or hold. Harvesters coming out against Missouri's new SNAP benefits changes.
Oh, boy. How quickly can I sell this one? So, Missouri in 2026 is going to be making it so that when it comes to food stamps, you can't use it on junk food, pre-prepared or prepared desserts, soda, things like that. It's a no-brainer. It's good for everybody. It's good for the taxpayer. It is, frankly, good for the user of the food stamps. And it's also good for our healthcare system. Because if not, what you get is basically the government giving people food stamps to buy crap, which then makes them less healthy, which then puts them into a situation where oftentimes they're going to need Medicaid to try to get them on the right track if they start having health issues. So the issues compound themselves from a health perspective and from a taxpayer perspective. But for some reason, and I'm not blaming Channel 9 for this, they just did the story last night. Channel 9 does this story, and they've got people at Harvester saying, yeah, boy, this policy, I don't know about this. This is going to be bad for the SNAP benefit users.
Elizabeth Keever, Chief Resource Officer at Harvester, says low-income families will feel the changes.
You're going to see families who are going to have to choose between whether or not they can buy this granola bar that might be considered candy, depending on what order those ingredients are listed on in the back.
Significant. Okay. And Harvesters coming out against the state of Missouri and trying to make those who use food stamps make healthier choices is not the thing I had on my bingo card this week. Why they would do this, why they would want to go down this road, why they would somehow think this would benefit them, I don't understand. Harvesters does a nice job. I've given them money before. I still think by and large they do a great thing and a service for our community. But somehow implying that Missouri deciding that you can't use food stamps for junk food or soda is somehow a disservice to the food stamp user and is somehow going to hurt those in need, I don't get. I can't figure this one out. I think Harvesters is totally out of line here with this, and it's a totally inconsistent message for them to be delivering right now on this specific issue. I can't figure it out. What's next, John?
Buy, sell, or hold. It's the 11th hour for the Kansas Star Bond Stadium offer. Royals, Chiefs, anyone?
Yeah, I'm going to buy that, mostly because my worst nightmare is that somehow Kansas comes back and says, you know that December 31 deadline we kind of put in place in pencil? You know what? That January 31. February 28th. I mean, technically, legally, they extended it for a year to next June, but they put their own self-imposed deadline in place of the end of this year. Well, it's December 12th. We've got about 3 weeks until the end of the year. Ty Masterson has said on this show they need a couple of weeks to review whatever kind of deal the Chiefs of the Royals put in front of them. And, they got nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I hope they hold firm here. I hope they tell these teams, listen, we told you guys December 31. We extended this thing once. We're not doing it again. I really hope that we are up against it, John. I'm not convinced that we are, but I really hope that we are.
Well, I hope they're opening up the holiday and Christmas cards. Maybe the Royals sent it in there, or one of those family things where they say, here's what we've been doing over the last year.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in there.
Let me just add this, too, real quick, before we get to Mark's parlay. I saw this from a sports talk radio host in Kansas City. It was possibly the dumbest thing I've seen on this issue. Someone who has been actively lobbying for 119th and Knoll. Who would do such a thing? Oh. Thank you to Basset Hound Bob. He shared one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. It was a state-by-state breakdown of the favorite team in every state, and it shows that Kansans' favorite team is the Royals, and obviously Missourians' favorite team is the Cardinals, just when you stack up the numbers, right? And it's like, another reason they must come across the state line to 119th and Knoll. And I'm like, boy, it's just... I'm getting pissed now. It's just crazy.
He's a troubled guy. His friends at the Jewish Community Center don't seem to want it, though.
Well, exactly. Good job by the Jewish Community Center coming out and saying, hey, you know what? We're not a fan of this either. You've got the community coming out against it. You've got the Jewish Community Center against it. You've got T-Mobile saying, we're moving if you guys come here. Things are finally stacking up against the Royals picking the worst location they could ever possibly pick in the Metro, which would be 119th and Knoll.
Saw something real quick in there. They did say, it cost about 8 figures to relocate. So that could be factored in for the Royals move.
Yeah, you'd think
Just
so.
So you know.
Absolutely. What do you got?
Sunday's the game. Buy, sell, or hold. Mark's Chiefs parlay for last chance number 3.
All right. What do you got cooking there, courtesy of our friends at FanDuel, Mark?
Oh, yeah. It's $10 to win 100 here on FanDuel. Same game parlay for the Chiefs. I've got Patrick Mahomes throwing for 200 yards or more. Rashee Rice, 50 yards or more receiving. Travis Kelce, 40 yards or more receiving. Xavier Worthy, 30 yards or more receiving. Kareem Hunt, 25 yards rushing or more. And Isaiah Pacheco, 20 yards rushing or more. And I put it in there this week, the Chiefs to win the game.
You put it in there, Chiefs money line.
Chiefs money line, yep. They got to bounce back this week.
They do need to bounce back this week. You're right about that. I'm selling it. I'm selling it, Mark. I'm selling it.
I was about to try to get you to buy it again. That Rashee Rice was not in that week 1 game. Xavier Worthy got hurt on the first play. They're ready to beat the Chargers this time.
I don't see Hunt and Pacheco getting those rushing yards.
Okay, yeah.
I think they're going to ride a hot hand. I don't see both. I don't see. They've been so bad at running the football. We know that. Maybe Kareem will get the 25. I mean, if Kareem gets to 50, 60 yards, Pacheco's not getting to 20. They're just going to ride a hot hand on this thing.
That's true.
So that's where I've got an issue with you here, Mark. I think you've got Kareem and Isaiah Pacheco in here, both getting 25 and 20 yards respectively, and I don't like that, to be honest.
Fair.
I love you. I love our friends at FanDuel. I'll place a little fun wager, but I ain't in on that one. Sorry, Mark. I'm selling it, buddy. I'm out. Donna Pitman, Channel 9, our feature Friday guest, and Mayor Lucas at 9:30. Well, it's time for our Feature Friday in-studio guest here on KCMO Talk Radio. She is Donna Pitman. You've been watching her for many years on Channel 9 KMBC. She is here because she's got a great project she has been working on that is airing coming up on Tuesday, 7 p.m., Channel 9 KMBC. It's called KMBC Chronicle, To the Women Who Served. Donna, first off, good morning. Thanks for being here.
A huge thank you to you, Pete, for having me. Good morning.
So let's just start off with this series and this project you've been working on now for 19 months.
Yeah, 19 months.
My goodness.
And it's gone in so many different directions. It's a long time, but it's been great to have that time because I will be honest with you and tell you that when I started and when I set out to do this and what I set out to do looks nothing like what we are going to show you Tuesday night. And that's actually a wonderful thing. I've met so many people and this has taken just directions I couldn't have imagined.
So, all right, it starts off 19 months ago. Where did you think the project was going to be versus where it is right now as it airs on Tuesday night?
So credit to Kristen Hanna, author. She writes historical fiction. I'll read anything she writes. She's brilliant. I read a book called The Women, which a lot of folks have read, and it's historical fiction about a woman serving in Vietnam, coming home, and just everything to and through. And so after reading that, I thought, well, what can we do? It just stayed with me in my head and my heart. How can we use our platform? We have one, right? And so then I started calling around. Does anybody know a woman who's a vet of Vietnam? I mean, you're looking at a mountain here, not a hill.
Yeah.
Talking to a minority to begin with. Now we're talking to people who are in their late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, they are getting that old, huh?
About a war that we just don't talk about.
Yeah.
That women have not talked about, men have not talked about up until recently. So it wasn't an easy task. To answer your question, my thought was I'm going to get at least 3 local women who served in Vietnam. And we have women who served in Vietnam, but I'm thinking they're going to tell me all about these different experiences that they had there. And what fascinates me and is that I can look at them, and with the exception of going off to war, I can look at myself and all my friends at age 20, 22, 23, 25. You're trying to better your career. You want to travel. You want to save the world, change the world, come from a small town. Maybe I'm from Independence. But they had so much in common, and their experiences, absolutely horrible and harrowing, but also have so much in common. What I realized was it's how they got through, out, and then survived. What does that look like? One of our nurses, she stayed in the military for 23 years. We had one come home and be called baby killer. You just got to think those are stories you hear, no, really happened.
Yeah.
So that's been interesting, is following their lives after. Of course, we address everything they saw and did, but how they were treated and how they recovered and still are, truly.
That's amazing. So what surprised you as you found these women who served in Vietnam here in the Kansas City area? What surprised you in terms of the thread that tied them all together?
Maybe just the fact that they started out like myself, or a lot of young women that we know, we all would know, sisters, friends. I think what surprised me, and I don't really address this because it's about them, but with all of the veterans that we talk to, but is forgiveness. And I say that, that one word really covers a lot of things. Forgiveness for a war that maybe they didn't feel they should have been in, but they did what they were supposed to do. Forgiveness to people who treated them horribly when they returned.
Yeah.
Forgiveness for the ignorance of a lot of folks who, there are still people. Lou Eisenbrandt, she lives in Leawood. She's a veteran, was a nurse in Vietnam. She said that she'll run into people today, men who served in Vietnam, okay, who said, wait, well, no, women weren't there. And so her response to that is always a question, were you hurt? Well, no. Well, then you didn't see us. You didn't know we were there. And so, but forgiveness for that lack of awareness.
Yeah.
Forgiveness for the lack of attention. These women, I mean, they're in line with you at Target, they're at church. They're not walking around saying, I'm a hero, but yet they are. So they're not recognized.
Yeah, you don't necessarily, to even the point of the guys who are serving there as well, think about them as much.
You're right.
If at all.
You're right.
If we're being honest.
Yeah.
Wow. So what, when you were talking to these women and they were sharing their stories with you, Did you still sense some pain about all this 60 years
absolutely.
later?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And even Lou said something after our interview. I mean, I've 19 months. These are my friends now. These are my family, you know. And we were talking, and she said there were some things that I didn't put in the book because they're just too bad, and I figured people can probably figure it out.
Wow.
Dottie Snow is beautiful inside and out, and she lives in Lee Summit, Missouri, and she really struggled emotionally, and still does. I mean, she recounts some stories to us that, you know. Interviewing her, I reached for the box of Kleenexes for myself, and I thought, well, I should probably offer them to her. But it was, you know, just to look at what they went through. And something, we talked to Hugh Mills, who is a pilot and a Vietnam vet. He survived. He was shot down 16 times in 3 tours. Okay. And Hugh lives in Kansas City, lived to tell about it, worked for the Kansas City Police Department, flying choppers for years, the helicopter. But Hugh says it best in that what he saw as a patient at times, as a captain taking his men into these medical units, you know, was horrible, and something that you'll never forget. Think about that: 12 hours a day, you have 7 days a week. You had time off, but once those choppers are in, you're going to work, and that's what these nurses endured. They saw it day after day, hour after hour. They saw the worst that I think we could probably imagine when it comes to humanity.
That's amazing. Donna Pitman is here, Channel 9 KMBC anchor, of course, coming up on Tuesday night, 7 p.m., the documentary KMBC 9 Chronicle to the Women Who Served is going to be airing once again, Channel 9, 7 p.m., coming up on Tuesday night, December 16th. So the PTSD angle, we talk a lot about that with veterans here in Kansas City. We have a lot of organizations that we support on that front. How have the women handled that?
It's very individual, and Lou will be the first to tell you that she has been lucky, whatever you want to call it. She hasn't dealt with it the way that a lot of people, PTSD, a lot of people would. And I think that's put her in a place that she will die on the hill of don't forget who we are. Don't forget we were there. Here's what we did, you know. And so she's been able to do that. Maybe that's how she grapples with it. We asked her the other day, someone asked her, do you ever forget? Is there a day you don't think about it? And she said, no. So she thinks about it. She carries it with her. Dottie shut down. You know, at a certain point, you go on. She has a wonderful husband, Ken, who actually served with her, and we talk about that as well. But and I say shut down, but she shut out. She said, I don't do Vietnam. She just didn't. We're done. It's over. I'm not talking about it. She raised a beautiful family, had a wonderful career as a music teacher in Lee Summit. She gets a phone call from her best friend, Trudy, who served with her in Vietnam, said, hey, they're doing this thing in Washington. They're going to do a statue. We need to go. And Dottie said, no, I'm not. Nope, I don't do Vietnam. Well, Trudy ended up talking her into it, and they traveled together, shared a hotel room, and they were there for the unveiling of the women's Vietnam Women's Memorial in Washington, D.C. in 1993. That, she said, was a life changer for her. It allowed her to breathe. It allowed her to feel proud. She was called horrible things when she returned for wonderful. They saved babies. They saved Vietnamese children and civilians. And so she was able to start to truly own the pride she should have for her service after that.
You know, if you think about it, I mean, the Vietnam War ended, 50 years ago at this point? So no one under 60 probably has any even memory of it at this point. What did you learn about the war and the fallout from the war in putting together this documentary?
Well, my focus was on, the people who served. So the fallout, I mean, speaking on the human level, right, not on the political level, I don't want to ruin too much, but you don't just come home, unpack, and start your job at the TGNY. Yeah. I pulled that out of the 1980s. I don't think they've had a TGNY here for a while. But you don't, it's the fallout is the wounds that you carry, that to use a cliche, but that you just don't see. And then the wounds that you carry that are ready to fester. Lou lives with Parkinson's disease, and she was diagnosed in 2002. That was something that, she goes to her doctor and finds out, well, it's really, we see this in farmers, pesticides, Well, she realized it was, exposure to Agent Orange in the year that she was there. So,
wow.
And the Army has acknowledged that, and she's getting medical care. But so the fallout in terms of the human, it goes beyond just the homecoming.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Donna Pitman's here, Channel 9 KMBC anchor. On Tuesday night, it is airing at 7 p.m., KMBC 9 Chronicle, To the Women Who Served. We'll take a quick break, come back with Donna Pitman here on KCMO. We do have Mayor Lucas coming up at 9:35 as well. Busy 9 o'clock hour on KCMO.
from Smithville to Shawnee Mission. You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
We are in the studio with Donna Pitman, Channel 9 KMBC anchor. She has a great documentary coming out, part of what has been a really good series, KMBC 9 Chronicle, to the women who served, highlighting many of the women who served and oftentimes got overlooked in the Vietnam War in particular. So, Donna, tell me the story here about Ann Lynch and her daughter and just this amazing story that unfolds in the Chronicle and things that her own family found out about her time in Vietnam that really got overlooked over the last 50 years.
I call what they found both a gift and a thief at once. So Megan and her brother both knew that their mother, Ann, served with the Army in Vietnam. And Ann actually stayed with the military for more than 2 decades after leaving the war. But as a parent, I mean, you understand, you don't necessarily talk about the ins and outs of your job with your kids. And if your job was spending a year, or as Ann says, 366 days, it was a leap year, in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And she didn't talk to her kids about the ins and outs and the horrible, gruesome things that she saw and the heroic things that she did. Megan was moving her mom's belongings and going through boxes and found handwritten on note cards, lined note cards, a speech that her mother had given, had to be in the mid to late 80s, after that she had given after she got back from the war, but to a group of nurses, Vietnam nurses. But in the speech, she addresses all nurses of war and says, nurses are mainly female. It is a beautiful speech about what she went through, what she endured, and what she knows that those sisters, those other nurses, went through. And she touches on being in a doctor's office back when they had magazines in doctor's office, and seeing a Time magazine that was a 10-year anniversary. That's how I knew it had to be after 85, right? Somewhere in there. A 10-year after the war. And this entire Time magazine was all about it. And from front to back, she writes how she read the stories of these men, heroes for sure, but what they saw and what they still lived with, and just the horrible, gruesome, I keep using that word, but things that they saw. And she said, it dawned on me. She said, first of all, no mention of women, no mention of nurses in that entire magazine. But also, she said it hit her that this is what we, talking to the other nurses, saw every day. Kind of back to what I was saying before. This was something that from the start of your shift to when it was over, and you don't clock out. I mean, it's over when the last patient is seen until the next patient comes in. They saw things that I probably shouldn't talk about on the radio even, it just beyond what you can imagine.
That's
put people back
unbelievable.
together.
But it gets back to the point where the veterans, women and men, but in this case, the women, they didn't even want to talk about this stuff with their own children, which is very telling.
Yeah.
And part of that, I imagine, is the PTSD. Part of it also may be the shame that they had coming back from that war and the way they were treated.
The way they were treated, it's a box you don't want to open. It's taped up, it's put under the bed, and that's where it is, and you move on with your life. But, when I say that it was both a gift and a thief for Megan and her brother, it gave them an insight and truly an understanding to their mom that they had not and would not otherwise have. Megan said, my mom was hard as nails. She did not, she didn't suffer fools. But at the same time, boy, the questions that she wishes she could have asked her mom and that she could ask her mom.
Yeah. There is a story here I know. You also highlight Sharon Lane. She does not live in the Kansas City Metro, or did not live in the Kansas City Metro. The only female service member who was killed by enemy fire in the Vietnam War at just 25 years old. But you did track down her nephew, Tim. What was that like?
Oh, we couldn't have done this without, when I found out, and full disclosure, I, again, thought I had a general knowledge of the Vietnam War. I had no idea that, and I hesitate to use the word only, but only, a single one woman service member from the U.S. was killed as a result of enemy fire, which is just mind-boggling to me because there were 11,000 women in the 20-year time that we were there that served. But I couldn't do it without talking without talking about Sharon Lane, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was incredible to talk to her nephew, Tim Tritt. So we traveled to Canton, Ohio, and he opened up his heart. He opened up the family photo albums and box of letters from Sharon. Something that sticks with, well, there are a lot of things from those letters, all handwritten to different relatives, but mostly to her mom and dad. And the last letter was written 4 days before she was killed. She was actually excited. She was happy. She talks about how there hadn't been any mortar fire for a few days, which was good. And she was looking forward to her new schedule, which would allow her to work overnights, so she could sleep in.
Mm-hmm.
And she also really loved working with children. That was what she wanted to do. So she was able to work on the children's wing of her evac hospital.
Wow.
And obviously that would be with Vietnamese children. Something else that sticks with me. So her parents would have gotten that letter after they got the knock on the door.
Oh, wow.
Which just, yeah. One of her letters, she talks about things. And she was a very nice young lady. She said, please use the money that I left for you. This is a family of, middle-class family and average means. And she said, I left money for you to do this. Would you please, when you get a chance, buy, and she wanted a heated blanket and a few other things because she said it was going to get cold. So she said, if you can just, by August, September, October. She didn't make it to August. She didn't make it to July. I mean, it's heartbreaking to think.
Yeah.
She was there for 45 days.
Wow.
But she had to have helped thousands of people. From everybody I talked to, just the numbers that went through that evac of people that she helped in her time there and saved their lives.
And her nephew, Tim, served as well, right?
He served. And I asked him, and this got me, before I even laid eyes on him, this was in a phone conversation, and I said, why? And not as a bad thing. I mean, we love our military.
Mm-hmm.
But with this experience and the way that it has shrouded your family and affected your family, each individual family member differently, but in a horrible way, obviously, why would you sign up to serve? And he said, because I wanted my family to have somebody who came back.
Wow. And that's exactly what makes military families different in this country.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They just have a different outlook on serving and the importance and the value of it in ways that, others don't. It's
and there's
just
no
true.
blaming, the administration. No. There's no blaming from Tim. We shouldn't have been there. What happened. And again, the after effects, something that I did not have time in a 1-hour documentary, still didn't have time to go into, was Sharon's dad passed away, died by suicide 10 years after she was daddy's girl, apparently. And he just could not do it.
That's amazing. Donna Pitman, Channel 9, KMBC anchor. It is airing Tuesday, 7 p.m. Make sure you're watching or DVR it, KMBC 9 Chronicle, to the women who served. Great job, Donna. Credit to you, Channel 9, your parent company, Hearst, for investing in this and allowing you to do it. And also a shout out to your mom, who is a listener of the show.
We'll enjoy that.
Thank you for being here, Donna.
Thank you, Pete. I really appreciate it. And John.
You bet. Donna Pitman, Channel 9, KMBC. Make sure you're watching on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. to the women who served. Mayor Lucas will join us on a Friday coming up next.
From Lenexa to Lee Summit, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
It's been a little bit, but thank you to the mayor of Kansas City, Quinton Lucas, who is joining us on a Friday. Battling pneumonia last week. We had Thanksgiving 3 weeks ago, and then yesterday we were too busy raising $107,000 for the kids here in Kansas City with our Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope, supporting all the kids who need help from KU Medical Center and the University of Kansas Health System. So we moved him. He's kind enough to shift his schedule around to here to join us on a Friday. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the time.
Good morning. It is great to be with you. Congrats on raising all that money for a great cause.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. So never a dull moment in your world, obviously. There's plenty going on this week in Kansas City. Let me just start off here on a somewhat lighter note. I heard your interview with Carrington Harrison, who I think, just in terms of sports radio, does the best job in Kansas City and is super talented. But I'm listening to the interview, and I hear you talk about the streetcar and the World Cup, and I'm hearing you talk about an east-west route. Was that just you riffing, or is there serious conversation about an east-west streetcar route going on right now?
Good listening on your part. That is not just riffing. We received a grant probably about 4 years ago relating to extending the streetcar into the state of Kansas, primarily with a connection to the University of Kansas Health System. As anyone who goes in that area knows, it's pretty crowded now. They've built out almost all the garages necessary, and to build a new giant garage is about $90 to $100 million, whereas if you can get it connected on the streetcar network, the Kansas share probably would be even perhaps less than that. This is something that we've talked to federal delegations in Missouri and Kansas about previously, and so we look forward to working with Kansas side officials to try to get something like this done. Of course, a connection that gets you to Main Street from KU is not that long, wouldn't have the same level of expense, opens up a network not just to that part of Wyandotte County, which is the southeastern corner of the county, but also, of course, then could connect you to parts of Johnson County and kind of continuing on from there. So, look, I think it's an exciting and interesting opportunity. I've had meetings on it. It shows that we are a bi-state region, even where we disagree sometimes, and I look forward to seeing maybe if we can get this moving before I'm done in office.
Okay, so listen, the streetcar extension that just finished up was about $100 million a mile. What's this grant for, and what do you expect a potential federal contribution to be versus the local contribution?
Yeah, fortunately, we're looking at about what would be a 2-mile stretch, so you can do the math, get you about 200, maybe with some increases, 220. The federal grant is, I believe, closer to 4 or 5 million. That is in the design study, public engagement, look at what the route would be, see how you could actually build it, right? You are going through some dense parts of particularly Kansas City, Missouri. What would the stops look like? How would you connect it from there? It's the same sort of thing that they built downtown. For anybody who was here 15 years ago, the idea of running a train down on Main Street, would be something. And so, I think it just allows us to build up what could be a strong opportunity on what would eventually be a longer network. I know there are people that wanted to bridge the river. I've heard chats about that. Certainly we want to go further east to the east side of Kansas City. This is just something else that builds up with it. But I'm actually pretty optimistic about us being able to secure it. And to your question of federal funds, they usually cover about 60% of the total cost, which is pretty good.
And you think that's this administration, with the right support, would be open to funding 60% of that?
Look, I don't talk to the Trump administration every day, although we haven't been able to talk in a long time. Last week I met with Andrew Giuliani, the White House Task Force Director for FIFA. Good conversation, and I will remind you, most of our final funding grants and approvals for the streetcar expansion were under the first Trump administration. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that this administration continues to believe in building infrastructure. There's a big old infrastructure law passed. The money is still there. There is no reason that states like Missouri and Kansas should be able to get it. The governor, I believe, canceled the tunnel between New Jersey and New York State, which was a cajillion dollars. So there is money in programs. We'll make sure we're competitive to get it.
All right. Well, you were there last week in D.C. I know we didn't get a chance to chat then either, but the draw, the meeting, I talked to Pam Kramer, of course, the CEO of KC 2026, and there was a big article in the Boston Globe about 2 weeks ago saying, hey, Boston's not ready for this thing, and they specifically noted in the Boston Globe that Kansas City is a city that's doing very well getting set for this World Cup. So you talked to Andrew Giuliani. He's in charge of the task force appointed by President Trump. What's your read on how Kansas City's stacking up versus the other cities going into next year?
Look, I'm darn proud of how we're stacking up. As you know, I hang with other mayors. I was talking to some Congress people and senators yesterday as well. I mean, I think that Kansas City is kind of the belle of the ball in preparation, both in having funding identified, in collaboration of local law enforcement agencies, even your transit agencies. And I think that we're going to be in a position to be very good hosts. Does that mean that there aren't intangibles that might come up along the way? Absolutely. But I think that what we need to make sure we do is continue on this progress. A lot of that has been, and let me give credit where credit's due. And don't get me wrong, I know that our partners in Kansas are giving money, but the state of Missouri has stepped up substantially. And Governor Mike Kehoe, who previously was Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe, helped ensure that there would be enough funds for public safety for a lot of the build-out that we need, improvements over at Arrowhead Stadium. And I think that and I'll also give credit to the people of Kansas City, Missouri itself, the smallest jurisdiction when you talk about the states, that's given quite a bit too. So for that Kansas City, Jackson County, Missouri taxpayer, you put a lot into this. Hopefully that everybody there gets a chance to benefit a lot too.
All right. Well, I've you brought up Kehoe and some other sports things. I just got to touch on this since it's been 4 weeks. All right, we're up against the deadline here for these teams to potentially go to Kansas. There's no movement. Yep. You're seeing the news. Overland Park, Leawood, Jewish Community Center, T-Mobile, everyone's coming out against Kansas. So I think Missouri's in a great spot right now. You've been confident in Missouri for a long time. Where's that confidence level at right now on a scale of 1 to 10?
Wow, that's a good number question. I thought you would let me just kind of bluff through, but 1 to 10, I'm still probably about a 7.5. I ain't sweating. I think there are details you need to get through. But that being said, look, when everyone jumps up and down with this story or that story, Kansas City has been, steady along the way. It's like the tortoise and the hare. And I have been proud of the fact that, we don't need to do press releases or all these sorts of things to get some level of attention. We never stop talking to the teams. I think the state of Missouri and new Jackson County Executive Phil Lavoda have been very helpful to newer characters in this ongoing saga, the governor, our newest governor, and the county executive. And I think we're going to be in a good place. Not giving away anything. I just have always been confident, partially because it just makes sense. Mm-hmm. Anybody who looks at things says build a new $3 billion dome with probably several $100 million of as yet unidentified infrastructure costs, or put in far less to build out on an exceptional legacy at Arrowhead. And then the downtown story, I think, speaks for itself. So Kansas City's been very successful. The streetcar has been incredibly successful. We encourage your listeners who have not ridden it yet to do so. And I expect us to continue to be very competitive, and hopefully in a few weeks, we have more to announce for you in connection with what the next steps are in both of our stadiums and both of our teams.
Mayor Lucas joining us on KCMO on a Friday morning, shifting from our usual Thursday conversation. All right, what about this lawsuit in Westport? You've got folks alleging that Westport and the Community Improvement District was basically racist against local business owners. Where are you at on that, and whether or not you believe that is a problem down in Westport?
We want to build a welcoming city for absolutely everyone in Kansas City. That's something we're committed to. I understand there's a legal process now. I've heard strong opinions in many different ways. But, there's one assertion that I heard with which I would disagree, that would suggest that we can't welcome visitors from around the world because we have some level of substantial problems. I don't see that to be the case. I think that every district is going to welcome people of different backgrounds. I look forward to that. I know nothing about business conspiracies and some of the other issues that are alleged. I'm sure the courts will have a field day with that. Courts are pretty busy lately with a bunch of stuff going on, including redistricting and everything under the sun. So I'll let that be resolved there. I'm going to make sure that every business has a chance to succeed in Kansas City. And the best way, and this is why discrimination doesn't work, the best way to succeed is having as many customers as possible. Pete Mundo wants as many listeners as possible, no matter who they are, where they're from, and frankly, their political side of the aisle. And I would hope that every Kansas City business uses it that way, and certainly every smart business does.
All right. And then speaking of parts of town, last thing here, the plaza, you got high-rises that are now part of the equation, and that's been getting some traction over the last couple of weeks. You a fan of that or not?
You got to build up. You got to build up more density on the plaza. Do I agree with all the heights laid out? Probably not, but I think that what they've said as a development group is that they're going to, make sure that they're communicating with the community, that they're not planning to build at all the heights that are requested. They just want to be able to build like a good asset out of it. And so, look, folks, the question is really this. Do we want a surviving plaza for the future, one that's dynamic, one that we want to go to our big events for, one that is the crown jewel of Kansas City in the way it was when I was a kid now a few years ago? That's going to need some level of change. It's going to need more young people walking around. It's going to need more intensity. These are good things for the future of a community, not bad ones. And look, everyone is a Kansas City, Missouri pessimist, it seems, all the time. We're getting hit for it, but there's a new, $500 million development going on Grand Street downtown. I met with developers who are looking to build 2 more new residential towers in downtown Kansas City. People want to be in core places with dynamism. The plaza needs to be part of that narrative, and that's why I think you're seeing this, if not complex discussion, one that a lot of folks are pushing through. But I'm a supporter of growth on the plaza and a future of the plaza, so it can be exciting for the next 100 years.
All right, we'll be following. Mr. Mayor, thank you for fitting us in on a Friday morning. We'll get back to Thursdays next week, and we always appreciate your time. Have a great weekend, and you going to be out at Chili Arrowhead on Sunday?
I will be at Chili Arrowhead. Also, KCMO's getting hit for canceling holidays. Not true. We will have a Hanukkah menorah lighting at City Hall on Monday. All are welcome. All religious traditions are welcome. Celebrate this Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year season.
I'm glad you did bring that up. There's so much to get to. I admittedly dropped the ball on that one. All right, so we're going to see a Christmas tree maybe at City Hall. No one's hating on Christmas there?
There's a Christmas tree. You will have a menorah. Religion continues to exist. We welcome all different faith traditions, but, there are some things that are going to be traditional and continue in KCMO. That's one of them. The holiday season is about a lot of our faith-based traditions.
All right. Thank you very much for the time, as always, Mr. Mayor. Have a great weekend.
Hey, take care, everybody.
All right. Quinton Lucas on KCMO. 9:45 on a Friday. Let's wrap up the show with Kevin Keatsman, host of Uncanceled, next.
You're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO.
What a week. It's good to be back after the Thanksgiving break and then missing some time with the pneumonia last week, and now finally a normal week and raising $107,060. Here he is, Kevin Keatsman. That felt good yesterday, didn't it?
A great day. Although this is a tough assignment. I got to follow Donna, Pitman, and Mayor Lucas. What the heck does anybody want to hear from me for?
Oh, man. No, dude. First off, 9 o'clock hour on a Friday usually slows down, but it was rolling. You're just ending it on the high note, man. You're the icing on the cake, as always.
I missed part of Mayor Q. We had a little drama here in the hallways. We won't go into a lot of what was going on here, but I usually like to hear every word that he says or play it before I come in, so I didn't hear much of him today, but I did hear him talking about a streetcar going east-west. Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah. University of Kansas Health System. He thinks the feds might actually throw some coin our way for that.
I mean, nobody rides the north-south one.
Well, he said record numbers since the extension.
Record numbers.
Well,
I mean, the Royals lost 104 games last 1 year, and it was a massive improvement over the year before.
Yeah, I know. You can make numbers lie, and you can do whatever you want. Screwing with that data. You're right about that. But thank you for your support. I know last year on our Children's Miracle Network, Miracle Day of Hope, it was like your third day on the job.
Yeah, it was.
Now, you're a year into it. So yesterday you were a pro, man. And talking about your grandson and Rudy and all that, I mean, that was unbelievable.
My wife didn't hear it. I don't think my friends heard it. I guess I'm okay with that. There's nothing to apologize for, but man, I just freaking lost it yesterday. I've never done that before. I lost it. And you hear these stories of these kids, and when something like mine is nothing. I just want to reiterate this. Mine compared to all these others is nothing because he's healthy. But just the terror, the frighten of a NICU for 43 days, and you're just not like this little person can't survive on their own outside this incubator that they're in. That's terrifying enough. And then you hear these stories.
Yeah.
Like Robert, who was in here yesterday, telling the story about his daughter.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable what people go through.
Well, but the other thing too for you, it's new for you, and it's your first grandkid, and it happened 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
7 weeks ago.
Yeah, we're blessed and lucky. I can't tell you how many times I thought about the NICU nurses that I met.
Yeah.
I've been out there a couple times now, and they're in Arizona, and every time I marvel at the nurses. It's what these people do with their lives is unbelievable. They're so committed to people they absolutely don't know. It's remarkable.
And it makes, anytime I think about them, really first responders, cops, NICU nurses, I'm like, boy, what we do is just, it is just all roses compared to what they deal with.
As Frank Bowl told me back in the day, Keatsman, you're a selfish rube. I'm like, yep, that's it. Just a guy with a microphone, a selfish rube. I've never even known what a rube is, but he used to call me a rube. That's a bad thing? Is that a Jersey? Is that a
rube? Yeah, I mean,
Villanova thing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a Villanova thing, but yeah, I use the word rube quite a bit.
It's negative, right?
It's not flattering. It's not a flattering word. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the official definition of a rube is, but I'm going to look it up real quick. A rube, a country bumpkin. There you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
I was going to say, I knew it was going to be, I would have interpreted it as something that a city kid would use against someone who is perceived to be, an outstate kid.
Yeah.
So when you're Frank Bull from Pittsburgh and Villanova and you come to Kansas City, he'd call you a selfish rube.
That's exactly.
Oh, my gosh.
You nailed it, Pudgy. You nailed it.
That's a bad look, though, from Frank. That makes all Villanova guys look bad. I mean, that's kind of a talking down to people. He shouldn't be saying that.
He hasn't called me that maybe in 20 years. I've known him a long time, or 15 years. I grew up a little. When he first had me, it was fit. I'm sure it fit.
Okay.
A rube, somebody uneducated or uncultured.
There you go. That's me. I went to K-State.
That's come on, Frank. You can't do that to a young guy. Nowadays he'd be called into HR and get DEI training for calling a subordinate a rube.
Well, you're a little guy. You like to pick on Basset Hound. Always says when he still refers to. There was this thing in Kansas City forever. Whenever somebody was going to say K-State or Manhattan, they would say, way out there in western Kansas, or out there. There was always this thing like it was farther away than it is. I'm like, it's 90 minutes from my house. That's not very far in the grand scheme of things. It's 60 miles, not even 60 miles, I don't think, from Lawrence. But there was always that. So I think I was Frank's first K-State guy on his staff. And he's like, oh, yeah, nobody covers those. They're so far out there, we don't cover that. I'm like, it's closer than Mizzou. And he's like, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. So selfish rube. That's me.
That's funny. Yeah. But as someone, when I was in Northwest Oklahoma and spending time in Southwest Kansas, like, that's Western Kansas, okay?
Right.
When you're in Dodge and Meade and Garden City, like, that's Western Kansas. Yeah. Where does Western Kansas start in your eyes?
Oh, my gosh. I'm not familiar enough with Western Kansas. It's definitely west of Salina.
Okay,
which
that's
is
what I
another
would
hour
say.
from Manhattan. I'm not sure Salina's halfway.
Because some people think
Is
that
it?
like Manhattan is Western Kansas.
Yeah,
To your
no,
point,
it's eastern Kansas. Actually, Kansas is a big, wide state. It takes forever to get through it.
I would agree with that assessment, but there are some people who just are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Manhattan, that's Western Kansas."
I would bet. I could be wrong. I would bet that Salina is not halfway to Colorado. I'd bet that. Would you bet that?
I would.
Russell's probably more in the middle.
Russell's more like it.
No, that's
Russell sounds way out there, doesn't it?
That's.
I get confused when I start doing Great Bend, Garden City, Russell Hayes. I don't know the order of them.
And Russell's got to be 4 hours.
That's about half. No, that's well over halfway.
John,
you're in Western Kansas when you can see a grain elevator on the horizon and you realize it takes you 10 minutes to get to that point. That's Western Kansas.
Oh, that's great. That's outstanding. All right, I got 30 seconds here. Let me just see. 3 hours and 29 minutes to Russell from where we're at right now.
That's a little past halfway. I'm about 6 hours through Kansas.
Yeah, okay. Little over halfway. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
There you go. But not Salina.
Not Salina. No, little past Salina to me.
A whole bunch of selfish rubes out there in Russell. You're listening in Russell
Kansas
today.
starts in Russell.
Western Kansas starts in Russell. Okay. All right. I'm good with that. Home of Bob Dole, of course. There you go.
There you go.
All right, my man. Thanks for all the great work yesterday.
You too,
and,
man. You killed it.
It was
Good work.
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was.
Great
All right.
stuff.
Keatsman Uncanceled coming up next. Have an awesome weekend. Stay warm and go Chiefs. We're back Monday morning at 6 a.m.